Chapter 1597, Life and Death 2. Hey little Feng Wu, are you a pig? The sun is so high already. Get up. The spiritual essence has almost spread to here. Feng Wu had wanted to lie in, but when she heard the last bit of little Phoenix's words, she jerked up in bed. What? The spiritual essence is almost here. Feng Wu jumped to her feet and ran toward the door. Little fool, little Phoenix said grumpily. Lifting the curtain, Feng Wu saw that everyone outside was attending to their own tasks and affairs without showing any anxiety. She examined the air around her but didn't feel any dense spiritual essence, let alone the so-called chaotic energy. The spiritual essence hasn't spread here. Throwing a dirty look at little Phoenix, Feng Wu wanted to climb back into bed. She was exhausted from cultivating the night before and still hadn't recovered yet. She needed some quality sleep time to recharge. However, before Feng Wu could get back into bed, little Phoenix flew out of the ring space and smacked her on the head. Feng Wu grimaced in pain. Holding her head, Feng Wu stared at little Phoenix and gritted her teeth. What are you doing? Somehow, she felt that little Phoenix became much stricter after it woke up this time. To be more precise, it seemed to become an elderly figure who liked to scold her. It was such a strange feeling. At that thought, Feng Wu stared at little Phoenix and narrowed her eyes. What secret was the bird hiding? And why did it seem to concern her? Feng Wu was still feeling confused when little Phoenix urged her loudly, "What are you waiting for? Do you think you still have a lot of time? Go." What? Feng Wu was confused when she heard those words. Go find Jun Linyuan. Little Phoenix yelled anxiously. After it woke up this time, it had gained the instinct to tell good fortune from ill omens, and it could sense now that Feng Wu was going to run into some danger. Why should I go to Jun Linyuan? I won't. Grabbing her duvet, Feng Wu wanted to lie down again. Little Phoenix picked up the duvet with its beak and threw it away. Hey! Feng Wu glared at little Phoenix. It was a good thing she didn't sleep in the nude. Staring at Feng Wu, little Phoenix spoke in a tone that suggested that Feng Wu wasn't able to live up to its expectations. Little Feng Wu, do you think I was making fun of you when I told you to go to Jun Linyuan? Do you not realize that there's a life-threatening tribulation ahead of you? What? Feng Wu was really surprised this time. A life-threatening tribulation? What's that? Little Phoenix glared at her. I can't reveal divine secrets, and I can't foresee the details. But I'm sure of this tribulation, so hurry up and go to Jun Linyuan. Stay with him for the next few days. Don't go anywhere else. Go now. Feng Wu still dallied. Little Phoenix wanted to kick her. Which is more important? Your pride or your life? The latter, of course. But? Little Phoenix stared at Feng Wu. Feng Wu said, Are you sure about this? Little Phoenix looked solemnly at Feng Wu. Yes. Not only is it a life and death tribulation, but what? Feng Wu gritted her teeth and asked nervously. It's a life-threatening tribulation circle. That's the most life-threatening of all. If the chance of escaping a life and death tribulation is slim, this one is much worse. Chapter 1598. Will it really end before it starts? Feng Wu said, Are you saying that I'm going to die? Little Phoenix gave her a grave look and nodded silently. Feng Wu said, I don't believe it. How can I? Haven't I obtained the Ghost King seal already? Little Phoenix took a deep breath. I'm the last one here who wants to see you dead, okay? If it could, it would never urge Feng Wu to approach Jun Linyuan. After all, there was a soul imprint embedded deep in its mind which warned it that Feng Wu had to be kept apart from all teenage boys. Although it had no idea where that memory came from. Feng Wu asked, Really? Why are you still not going to Jun Linyuan? Little Phoenix patted Feng Wu's head. All right. Feng Wu waved at it, straightened her clothes, and was about to go out. Chaoga walked in at that moment, holding a huge bowl in one hand and stuffing some sliced fruit into her mouth with the other. The fruit of the senile grassland was full of spiritual energy and could benefit one's cultivation, which was why all visitors from the Central Plain loved them. Xiao Wu, where are you going? Chaoga mumbled. I'm going to go find Jun Linyuan, said Feng Wu. Immediately after that, she ran off. Chowga was stunned, and before she realized it, Feng Wu was nowhere to be found. Chowga was speechless. I thought you didn't like Jun Linyuan. Holding the big bowl, Chowga stood there in bewilderment, feeling somewhat lost. Kiddo, what's going on there? Someone poked her forehead. Looking up, Chowga saw Feng Sun, and she gave him an expectant look. Do you think Xiao Wu really doesn't like the crown prince? How naive! Feng Sun patted her head. Chowga heaved a long sigh and lowered her head. I thought so too. What happened? Why do you look so disappointed? Feng Sun found Chowga quite amusing. Before, Chowga used to be so sprightly, rash, and full of life that she reminded him of the morning dew of spring. He had never seen her so crestfallen. Do you think, biting her lower lip, Chowga looked at Feng Sun with teary eyes. Do you think Xiao Wu will care about me after she has his royal highness? Little fool. Feng Sun poked her in the head. What on earth are you thinking? Is Xiao Wu the type who will ignore her friend because of her man? Chowga felt disappointed and sad. But I won't be Xiao Wu's top priority anymore, will I? Feng Sun rubbed her little head grumpily. They're both proud people and they haven't told each other their true feelings yet. Isn't it a little too early to worry about that? Maybe it'll be over before it even starts. Chowga's eyes lit up when she heard this. Really? Is it possible that they'll be over before anything starts? Feng Sun, don't lie to me. She held his hand tight and sounded excited. Feng Sun didn't know what to say. This girl back when the campsite was established, Jun Linyuan's tent was put right next to Feng Wu's. Therefore, Feng Wu was outside Jun Linyuan's tent in just a moment. However, Granny Gong gave Feng Wu a wry smile. Miss Wu, His Royal Highness isn't here. She was happy to see Feng Wu coming to Jun Linyuan. Huh. Feng Wu scratched her head. Where is he? Granny Gong shook her head with a wry smile. His Royal Highness never tells his servants his whereabouts. Chapter 1599. I'm a cat, I have 9 lives. Feng Wu recalled her life and death tribulation, and she had to ask, Granny Gong, do you know where he went? Granny Gong gave her an apologetic look. She wanted to help Feng Wu, but unfortunately. Feng Wu said, well, then I don't know where to find him. Granny Gong nodded. Feng Wu scratched her head. That was very bad news. Is Mr. Feng with Jun Linyuan? That was her last hope. Granny Gong shook her head with a wry smile. I see. Disappointed, Feng Wu lowered her head and left without another word. Granny Gong was glad to see how disappointed Feng Wu was. Miss Wu really likes His Royal Highness. She was so disappointed to hear that he wasn't here. Xiang Cao, Granny Gong's maid chuckled. Granny Gong cast a stern look at her. That's not for you to say. Xiang Cao immediately straightened her back and wiped the smile off her face. But Granny Gong began to chuckle herself. Xiang Cao was right. Although Miss Wu said many times that she wasn't in love with His Royal Highness, her behavior was more honest than her words. That made sense. With how extraordinary the Crown Prince was, how could any girl not be in love with him? If nothing goes wrong, she'll be our future lady. Understand? Granny Gong glanced at Xiang Cao and Bei. Xiang Cao and Bei nodded solemnly. Bei said hesitantly, what about her? Everyone knew exactly who Bei was referring to. After some hesitation, Granny Gong smiled wryly and said, that was why I said if nothing goes wrong, because she could be that accident. Xiang Cao and Bei nodded solemnly. Servants of the Crown Prince's residence couldn't have opinions of their own, because the Crown Prince's opinion was theirs, and they would like whatever he liked. Feng Wu grumbled to Little Phoenix as she walked. It's not that I won't look for him, but I can't find him, right? Little Phoenix snapped. If you can't find Jun Linyuan, then you only have one choice. Feng Wu looked up. What's that? Little Phoenix said, Jun Linyuan would have been a great patron. Since he's not here, go find another. The corner of Feng Wu's mouth twitched. How can you make it sound so easy? Little Phoenix glanced at Feng Wu. With how weak you are at the moment, How are you supposed to survive this land of spirit source if you don't find a patron? If you're dead, do you know how You'll die as well, right? I know that. You need to depend on my body. Feng Wu nodded. Do you think it'll be as easy as that? I'll just be dead if you are? Little Phoenix was speechless. Ever since part of its memory was unlocked, Little Phoenix had been very anxious. From what it could remember, what it was supposed to do was in stark contrast to what Feng Wu could do with her poor capability. It almost made it despair. Fulfilled? If it failed, it wouldn't be the only one who was doomed. Back then, it had taken an oath with that secret boss together with its whole clan. But which boss? Little Phoenix patted its own head. That part of the memory was still locked, and it couldn't remember. Seeing Little Phoenix frown, Feng Wu patted its head grumpily. Gosh, don't worry. I'm a cat, and I have 9 lives. I won't die. Chapter 1600. The Teenager Confessed, 1. Little Phoenix heaved a long sigh. You have to stay alive for me. Feng Wu nodded eagerly, otherwise, I'll strangle you myself. Feng Wu said, She was distracted by her conversation with Little Phoenix when she heard a voice nearby. Hey you. Turning around, Feng Wu almost fainted when she saw who it was. The teenager scrambling out of the thick growth of grass was none other than Jun Linyun himself. He was almost too excited to speak. As soon as she saw the prince run. Whoosh! Feng Wu dashed into the grass like a rabbit, and she kept running. Jun Linyun was dumbfounded. What happened? Why did his dream girl look like she had seen a ghost? However, Jun Linyun reacted quickly, and he immediately ran after her, shouting, Hey, wait! Wait for me! Feng Wu hid in the grass as soon as she ran into the thick growth and prepared to only come out after Jun Linyun left. However, Jun Linyun kept calling her. Hey, come out here! Come out! I've been looking for you for so long. Why are you hiding from me? Hey! Crouching down in the grass, Feng Wu buried her face in her hands in distress. If Jun Linyun kept shouting like this, people would gather around, and she would be in a lot of trouble. She would rather go out now and tell him that she was Feng Wu. Feng Wu had one merit: she was very decisive. Once her mind was made up, she sprang to her feet. Gosh! Jun Linyun was standing right next to her and was frightened when she suddenly stood up. There you are. You almost frightened me to death. Putting a hand on his chest, he heaved a long sigh. However, he immediately rejoiced. Gosh, you run as fast as a rabbit. You were out of my sight with a whoosh. Ha! Jun Linyun laughed like a fool when he saw his dream girl. Feng Wu looked solemnly at Jun Linyun. This is our 3rd meeting, right? Wow! Jun Linyun grew excited and pointed at Feng Wu. You remember? You remember that you robbed me of my horse in the imperial capital, don't you? Ha! I knew it. I knew you wouldn't forget. Speaking of which, you're a very rude girl, taking my things like that. Do you know how I got back after that? Jun Linyun was so excited that he wouldn't stop talking. Feng Wu was waiting for him to finish so that she could tell him who she was, but Jun Linyun simply went on and on, which gave Feng Wu a headache, but he still showed no sign of stopping. Feng Wu immediately waved her hands. Stop! Jun Linyun stopped abruptly and stared at Feng Wu in bewilderment. He suddenly asked, Do you like princes? Feng Wu looked perplexed. He pressed, Do you like princes? So, was he confessing his love now? She had to turn him down once and for all. It would be great if she could get rid of Jun Linyun without exposing her own identity. Hence, Feng Wu shook her head adamantly. No, I don't. Princes are too troublesome. I don't like them. I don't like them at all. She didn't like both Jun Linyun and someone like Jun Linyuan as well. Jun Linyun was dazed. He was so close to telling her that he was Prince Jun Linyun. Luckily, he had been clever enough to ask first. Chapter 1601. The Teenager Confessed, 2. However, Jun Linyun was greatly disappointed to find out that his dream girl wasn't into princes. He gave Feng Wu a sad look. But why don't you like princes? They're very high in status. If you can marry a prince, glory and wealth will be within your reach. Feng Wu threw a dirty look at him. Was he trying to persuade her to marry him? Poor Jun Linyun. He still didn't know that Feng Wu had found out about his affection for her, which was why she could see right through him. Feng Wu decided that she should use this opportunity to straighten things out with him. She patted him on the shoulder. Sit. We need to talk. All right. Jun Linyun obediently sat down in front of Feng Wu. The grass was taller than a grown man around them, so the others couldn't see the two people sitting here. Feng Wu had a solemn look on her face as she met Jun Linyun's eyes. Are you asking me why I don't like princes? Jun Linyun stared at her nervously. Yes. Feng Wu sighed, chose her words carefully, and told Jun Linyun, a prince may sound like a nice title, but with Jun Linyuan's unique position at the moment, life is very difficult for other princes, especially the second prince. He's also the son of the Empress, but his life is so much more miserable. Jun Linyun nodded in agreement when he recalled how his own brother had been humiliated by Jun Linyuan. Feng Wu said, of course, there are exceptions. Life wouldn't be so bad if they're on Jun Linyuan's side. Jun Linyun was elated. That was right. He himself was a prince on Jun Linyuan's side. Would his dream girl like him, then? But Feng Wu went on. If you ask me, the second prince isn't the saddest one. The most pitiful prince should be the seventh prince, also a son of Empress Dugu. She glanced at Jun Linyun as she spoke. Poor Jun Linyun. He still didn't know that Feng Wu was saying these things on purpose. He immediately gathered his thoughts when he heard his own name mentioned, and he kept his gaze fixed on Feng Wu. Why is the seventh prince so pitiful? Feng Wu looked at Jun Linyun and feigned a serious voice. Just think about it. Empress Dugu and Jun Linyuan don't see eye to eye, right? Jun Linyun nodded repeatedly. His mother would criticize Jun Linyuan in front of him whenever she could. He could almost recite her words. The second prince and Jun Linyuan don't like each other, right? Feng Wu asked. Jun Linyun nodded again. Prompted by their mother and the Dugu clan, his second brother had become greedy, thinking that he would have a chance to inherit the throne just because he was the son of the Empress. How naive! Feng Wu said, since both the second and seventh princes are Empress Dugu's sons, they should both be against Jun Linyuan, right? Jun Linyun shook his head repeatedly. No, it's not like that. The seventh prince grew up with the crown prince and respects him greatly. They're very close. Feng Wu smiled. Do you really think so? Jun Linyun said anxiously, yes. It's true. I swear. Feng Wu gave him an amused look. Why would you swear on it? You're not him. Jun Linyun wanted to say something but hesitated. For a moment, he almost blurted out that he was the seventh prince. However, recalling how much his dream girl disliked that title, Jun Linyun lowered his head and looked crestfallen. Feng Wu smiled at him. After her outright rejection, she thought that the teenager should take the hint. However, she had underestimated how obsessed Jun Linyun was. Chapter 1602, The Teenager Confessed, 3. He suddenly looked up, and his eyes shone like stars. He gave Feng Wu a most sincere look. Do you really dislike the status of the seventh prince? Feng Wu looked at him in bewilderment. Yes. Somehow, she found his tone rather serious. Jun Linyun seemed to have made up his mind, and he suddenly clenched his fists. I don't like him either. Feng Wu looked perplexed. He stared at Feng Wu. Will you like him if he's not the seventh prince? Feng Wu asked, what? Jun Linyun said, don't worry. The seventh prince won't exist anymore. Feng Wu asked, what do you mean? What did Jun Linyun mean by that? If Feng Wu was understanding it correctly, he meant that. Was he going to abandon his title because she didn't like it? She thought that Jun Linyun was only joking, but when she saw the solemn look in his eyes, she realized that he wasn't joking. Because of that, Feng Wu had to stop him. Because I am. Feng Wu stopped him before he could tell the truth. How can I possibly like the seventh prince? You're joking. Feng Wu said loudly. Poor Jun Linyun. When he finally summoned up his courage to tell the truth, Feng Wu's words stopped him. Staring at Feng Wu, Jun Linyun didn't know what to say. Feng Wu said loudly, "No, I don't. I don't like the seventh prince at all, no matter whose son he is or if he has that title. I just don't like him." Jun Linyun lowered his head. She still wouldn't accept him even without that title. "Then, what kind of boys do you like?" Jun Linyun asked timidly, looking disappointed. "What do I?" She wondered why she should tell him. Feng Wu wanted to retort, but when she saw the way Jun Linyun looked, which reminded her of an abandoned puppy dog, and recalled how sincere he was, she relented. Moreover, she had to think of someone to dissuade him. But whom should she mention? Feng Wu tilted her head and racked her brain. "You're not from the Junwo Empire, are you?" Jun Linyun suddenly asked. Feng Wu asked, "What?" Jun Linyun smiled shyly. "I would have found you already if you're one of us. Therefore, you must be from the Sinal grassland." Feng Wu said, "Well?" Jun Linyun prompted her. "Tell me, what kind of boys do you like?" The first face that jumped into Feng Wu's mind was Jun Linyuan. That spectacular, untamed, talented Jun Linyuan. But she decided that she wouldn't describe him. Hence, she chose someone else that she was familiar with to describe to the prince. "The boy I like can't be a prince, but he can't be a lowborn either. A young lord would be nice. That way, he can avoid the power strife and live freely, but no one will dare to offend him either. The boy I like has to be tall, handsome, and pleasing to the eye. I won't be able to stand a life spent with someone that doesn't look nice." Chapter 1603, The Teenager Confessed, 4. The boy I like has to have great talent. He doesn't have to be as awesome as Jun Linyuan, but he can't be too much weaker either. The boy I like has to be kind and smile easily, and his smile has to be as warm as the winter sunshine, the boy I like. The more she spoke, the more desperate Jun Linyun became. According to his dream girl's criteria, he would be ruled out immediately because of his title. As for the rest of her description, Jun Linyun couldn't help but recall a name. Feng Sun. Feng Wu smiled at Jun Linyun. "I heard that your empire has a teenager just like that. I like him a lot." Jun Linyun had lost all hope. "By the way, his name is..." Seeing that Jun Linyun had frozen, Feng Wu chuckled inwardly. One had to know when to give up. Since she had made her refusal so clear, she thought that Jun Linyun should understand. However, that the seventh prince's answer was completely unexpected. "I'm Feng Sun." That simple answer struck Feng Wu like a thunderclap. Feng Wu was completely dumbfounded. Jun Linyun was equally shocked when he realized what he had said. He had just told a lie. Feng Wu gave him a strange look. What did you just say?" Jun Linyun wanted to tell the truth, but he enjoyed it when he saw how shocked his dream girl was. She couldn't be bothered to talk to him before, but judging from her reaction when she heard Feng Sun's name, she had to like Feng Sun very much. Jun Linyun said involuntarily, "I'm Feng Sun. I'm Feng Sun of the Junwo Empire. That's me." Feng Wu looked perplexed. Jun Linyun nodded solemnly. Feng Wu asked, "Feng Sun? Which Feng Sun?" She decided that she would give him a chance and forgive him if he said that he was another person. However, Jun Linyun didn't take that chance. One lie would usually be followed by many more. Jun Linyun clenched his fists. Feng as in wind, and Sun as in waterside. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. She stared at Jun Linyun, thinking that he had lost his mind. She couldn't understand why he would pretend that he was Feng Sun. But she then realized that she was indeed thinking about Feng Sun when she gave the description. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. Jun Linyun looked nervously at Feng Wu. "So, what name did you want to say just then?" Feng Wu still didn't know what to say. Jun Linyun said seriously, "You know, the boy you described. The one you like. What's his name?" Feng Wu remained silent. He prompted her, "What's his name? What's he called?" Feng Wu gave no answer. She turned to leave. "Hey, why are you leaving so suddenly? Who's the one you like?" Is it Feng Sun? I'm him. Hey, don't go. You haven't told me your name yet. Hey, where are you? In the end, Jun Linyun was left behind, looking at the tall grass all by himself. Feng Wu was long gone. Feng Wu rubbed her head and felt very annoyed. Haha. In the ring space, little Phoenix couldn't stop laughing. Chapter 1604. The Teenager Confessed, 5. Feng Wu rolled her eyes at it. How can you still be laughing? Little Phoenix said, Ha, why is this prince so dumb? He called himself Feng Sun? Ha. Feng Wu rolled her eyes again. Little Phoenix went on laughing. Laugh again and I'll give you to Jun Linyuan. Feng Wu threatened with a dark face. Little Phoenix stopped laughing abruptly. For some unknown reason, it had a natural fear of Jun Linyuan. After rummaging through its memories, it still couldn't tell why. Subconsciously, it believed that Jun Linyuan was a lot more than the crown prince of the Junwu Empire. Feng Wu was still talking to Little Phoenix when someone suddenly bumped into her. Ouch! The figure tried to run past Feng Wu but was immediately thrown backward. Feng Wu had been talking to Little Phoenix and didn't pay much attention to the activity around her. When she realized what had happened and tried to stop it, the person had already fallen backward. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. Arg! It hurts, someone moaned in the grass a short distance away. Feng Wu frowned and was about to examine the person. She didn't think that she was capable of knocking someone away. In fact, she didn't believe that she had run into anyone at all. They were bounced off when they didn't run into her, but they appeared to have been injured. How interesting. At that thought, Feng Wu narrowed her eyes. Lady Tung, are you all right? Feng Wu heard a familiar voice. Looking up, she saw that it was indeed an acquaintance. It was Princess Sapphiro. She walked up to them in a hurry and helped the woman, whom she called Lady Tung, to her feet, looking rather anxious. Lady Tung, are you all right? Can you stand? Sapphiro shouted loudly, as if she feared that no one could hear her. They were quite close to the core area of the campsite, so her voice alarmed many people. Jun Wuxia, Jun Wu, Mrs. Dug, Mrs. Swa, and the noble ladies of the Sinal grassland were at a gathering held by Empress Dugu. Empress Dugu frowned when she heard the voice, and she gave Queen Thai, who sat right next to her, a confused look. Queen Thai was Chieftain Sinal's official wife and Sapphiro's own mother. She was a reserved and taciturn figure that seldom came out to meet guests. That's Sapphiro. Squin, go find out what happened, Queen Thai said with a frown. Squin was Queen Thai's senior maid. Hearing the order, she nodded, bowed at Queen Thai, and slowly backed out. You go have a look as well, Empress Dugu told Suya, her senior maid. Just then, Mrs. Wa rose to her feet. Your Majesty, would you like me to go have a look as well? Empress Dugu nodded. Mrs. Wa thought that she had heard Feng Wu. When she went out, she saw that it was indeed Feng Wu, together with Sapphiro. She was elated to see that the two girls were confronting each other. Mrs. Swa was confident that there was a conflict. As expected, Mrs. Swa could hear Sapphiro's angry yelling. Feng Wu, what do you mean by this? Do you think so highly of yourself just because you're a princess? You can knock people down just because His Majesty and the chieftain favor you? Sapphiro glared at Feng Wu, looking very aggressive. Feng Wu narrowed her eyes. Chapter 1605. The Teenager Confessed, 6. Sapphiro pointed at Feng Wu. I don't care who your patron is. I only know that if you knock someone down, you should apologize. Come over here and apologize to Lady Tung now. Facing the sun, Feng Wu narrowed her eyes. She didn't say anything, but the mocking in her eyes couldn't be any more apparent. Sapphiro ranted for a while, but Feng Wu remained silent. She even smirked at her, which only irritated Sapphiro further. Sapphiro snorted. What's that look in your eyes? Do you think we're swindlers? Feng Wu gave Sapphiro a half-smile, as if she had seen through Sapphiro's pretense. Sapphiro was furious. Feng Wu was indeed very calm and clever. She didn't fall into the trap so easily. Sapphiro shot Lady Tongue a warning glance. Lady Tongue was Chieftain Sinal's new favorite. Her skin was as white as snow. She seemed almost too fragile for her clothes, as if a wind could blow her away. Chieftain Sinal couldn't be any more fond of her these days. Seeing Sapphiro's glance, Lady Tongue nodded slightly. Suddenly she gripped her belly and whimpered, "Ouch, my stomach. It hurts so much." A lot of people had already gathered around. When they saw Feng Wu standing there with her hands behind her back and Lady Tongue looking so helpless, they already picked sides. When Lady Tongue started crying prettily with her pale face, almost everyone pitied her. They found Feng Wu so heartless. Princess Feng Wu, that wasn't nice at all. She knocked the lady down, she did. I saw it with my own eyes. Shouldn't she apologize for what she did? Instead, she looks like she isn't scared of anything. That's outrageous. That's right. Princess Feng Wu is too proud, but I guess that's understandable. If any of you can cook food that can make people break through in their cultivation, and if you can gain His Majesty's and the chieftain's favor, you'd be proud too. Of course I admire the fact that the food she cooks is filled with spiritual essence, but she's so arrogant now. Well, she has His Majesty and the chieftain behind her, along with His Royal Highness. She can do whatever she wants in this campsite. I heard that even Princess Jun Wuxia has to avoid her. Forget the princess, even Empress Dugu has to let her be. Gosh, even Empress Dugu can't do anything about her? Princess Feng Wu has risen so high. No wonder she's so proud. Hearing the gossip, Mrs. Zhuo was elated. She and Mrs. Dugu had been telling people to spread rumors about Feng Wu these days. It seemed that it was taking effect. But Mrs. Zhuo hadn't expected Feng Wu to play into her hands. Feng Wu was still too young. She didn't know how terrifying public opinion could be. Since it was such a great chance that Mrs. Zhuo quickly went back to the gathering. Seeing that Mrs. Zhuo had come back so soon, Empress Dugu asked, "Why is it getting noisier outside? Did I hear Princess Feng Wu's name?" Mrs. Zhuo smiled bitterly. That's right. It really is Princess Feng Wu. She's having a row with Princess Sapphiro again. Empress Dugu frowned. Again? But immediately, all eyes were on Mrs. Zhuo. Chapter 1606, Mysterious Princess, 1. Mrs. Zhuo smiled wryly. I heard their quarrel. It seems that Miss Feng Wu didn't watch where she was going and knocked down a young lady called Lady Tongue. Princess Sapphiro asked Princess Feng Wu to apologize, but Princess Feng Wu is too proud and refused. Lady Tongue? She was knocked down? Queen Dai frowned and rose to her feet. Empress Dugu gave Queen Dai a wry smile. It's just a quarrel between kids. Let them be. We don't need to get involved. However, Queen Dai, who was usually very easygoing, looked very grave today. Clutching her handkerchief, she shook her head. We found out yesterday that Lady Tongue is pregnant. What? Everyone had strange looks on their faces when they heard this. Feng Wu had knocked someone over, and it was true that it was too petty a matter to bicker about. But things were different now. Lady Tongue was pregnant, so if something happened to her, the consequences would be very severe. Moreover, Queen Dai said seriously, our master teacher has blessed this child already. There is a prophecy that if this child can be born, it will be such a blessing to this grassland and make us prosper. The master teacher was the spiritual leader of the entire Sinal grassland, and his words could have more weight than the chieftains. Queen Dai couldn't sit still anymore, and she rushed out of the tent. Empress Dugu and Mrs. Zhuo looked at each other, overwhelmed by this piece of good news. Fortune was indeed on their side this time. Sapphiro was already shouting anxiously when they all ran outside. Lady Tongue, how are you doing? Please don't frighten me, Lady Tongue. It hurts so much, my stomach. Lady Tongue clutched Sapphiro's hand. Save me. Save my child. Feng Wu frowned slightly, because she could see that something was wrong with Lady Tongue. Sapphiro stared at Feng Wu. Lady Tongue's baby has received a prophecy from the master teacher himself. It's going to be the sun of our grassland and the light and hope of our people. If we lose this baby, Feng Wu, the people of the grassland will tear you to pieces. Immediately, everyone looked at Feng Wu with complicated feelings. They wouldn't feel this way if Sapphiro was the only one who resented Feng Wu, but if all the people of the grassland hated Feng Wu, even the chieftain wouldn't be able to save her. There was no doubt that Feng Wu would be killed. Feng Wu stepped out. "Let me see Lady Tongue." There seemed to be something wrong with Lady Tongue. Sapphiro pushed Feng Wu away and shouted, "Feng Wu, what do you want? Haven't you harmed her enough? Do you want to kill her?" Feng Wu smirked. "If you want her and her baby to live, you better hand her to me now. Otherwise, if she dies and people find out what happened, Sapphiro, you'll have to answer for it." "Ha!" Sapphiro smirked. "Don't try to blame it on me. If anything happens, it's all your fault." Feng Wu nodded. "If it's like you said and I should be blamed for everything that happens to Lady Tongue, why should I kill her? Tell me, what grudge do I have against her?" Sapphiro said, "How am I supposed to know? It's all your fault." Chapter 1607, Mysterious Princess 2. Feng Wu said calmly, "Let's forget about if I did anything to Lady Tongue first. Right now, the most important thing is to save her. She's really not doing well. Keep stalling like this and you'll get her killed." Sapphiro smirked. "Stop pretending. She's like this because you knocked her down. How can I possibly hand her over to you? Plus, do you think you're some sort of master medicine refiner? Don't make me laugh." Feng Wu frowned. It seemed that Sapphiro really was going to put it off until Lady Tongue died. That way, she would be able to blame everything on Feng Wu. Empress Dugu stared at Feng Wu and looked very angry. After casting a stern look at Feng Wu, she said, "Go fetch Master Chu." She then shot a warning glance at Suya. "Yes, Your Majesty." Suya went off to carry out the order. She had served Empress Dugu for many years, so she understood the Empress perfectly well. Although Empress Dugu had given an explicit order to find Master Chu, what she meant was to stall as long as possible. She didn't want Master Chu to save Lady Tongue. Because the Empress had the same purpose as Sapphiro, they both wanted Feng Wu to take responsibility for Lady Tongue's death. But someone else was watching Empress Dugu. Chaoga and Qiuling had rushed over. While Chaoga was staring at Sapphiro, Qiuling had noticed Empress Dugu's gesture. Qiuling quietly slipped away before she reached Feng Wu. She turned around and ran off. "Master Chu! Master Chu!" While Suya was delaying her search and looking everywhere else, Qiuling arrived first, grabbed Master Chu, and dragged him away. After eating Feng Wu's roast meat earlier, Master Chu was working happily now to turn the spiritual essence into his own that he would need for his breakthrough. Young Feng Wu really was amazing, Master Chu thought to himself as he wrapped up his work. How long had he been stuck in his bottleneck? There was a time when he thought that he would never make another breakthrough in his life. When he activated his spiritual essence earlier, however, he realized that his stubborn bottleneck had loosened a little. Even someone as level-headed as Master Chu almost jumped up and down. What an amazing girl Feng Wu was. Although it was something she cooked up casually, to him, it could transform his life. Master Chu was still feeling very grateful to Feng Wu when Qiuling rushed in. Grabbing Master Chu, she dragged him toward the door. "Master Chu! Master Chu! It's my mistress! She's in trouble! Help!" Qiuling had been with Feng Wu all the time, so Master Chu immediately recognized her. And her mistress was Feng Wu. Master Chu was feeling so grateful to Feng Wu at the moment that he didn't know how to begin to repay the favor. So, his eyes immediately widened. What happened? Who's picking on Xiao Wu? Qiuling arrived at the scene late, but she had heard almost everything on her way there, so she immediately repeated it to Master Chu. Master Chu was already on Feng Wu's side, and he glowered. "That Sapphiro brings nothing but trouble. Come, hurry! Let's go to her." After figuring out where Feng Wu was, the anxious Master Chu sped up. Soon he left Qiuling far behind. Over on the other end, Suya was still wandering around when she looked up and saw a figure rush past her. Arg! Suya cried out in astonishment. Isn't that Master Chu? But she hadn't gone to Master Chu yet. How did he find out about this? Chapter 1608, Mysterious Princess, 3. Suya realized what happened when she saw Chioling. What happened? What happened? Master Chu yelled. People made way for Master Chu when they heard his voice. Seeing Feng Wu, Master Chu immediately asked, "Do you need me to treat her?" Feng Wu nodded. Sapphiro could keep Feng Wu away from Lady Tung, but she couldn't turn Master Chu down. Empress Dugu threw a dirty look at Suya. Suya lowered her head. Master Chu frowned after checking Lady Tung's pulse. "How is she?" Feng Wu asked. Master Chu shook his head. "I'm not sure." Feng Wu looked perplexed. Master Chu gave her a wry smile. "She's indeed pregnant. There's no doubt about that." Sapphiro shouted, "What do you mean? Did you think that Lady Tung faked the pregnancy? How dare you?" Everyone around them accused Feng Wu with their eyes and shook their heads. That was an outrageous idea. But there's indeed something strange about the fetus. Master Chu frowned a little. "It's quite peculiar." Feng Wu frowned. "What?" Master Chu said, "After all my years as a physician, this is the first time I've seen such a thing. It's very strange indeed." Seeing that Master Chu was friendly to Feng Wu, Sapphiro deemed him an enemy. She immediately said, "The master teacher said that Lady Tung's child will be the future son of our grassland. You just aren't lucky enough to see it." Master Chu glanced at Sapphiro but didn't say a word. Feng Wu said calmly, "Master Chu, you can't tell how the baby is doing, but you're sure about Lady Tung's condition, right?" Master Chu nodded. Feng Wu frowned. "How is she doing now?" Master Chu said, "Lady Tung, you've been sacrificing yourself for the fetus. You have abdominal cramps and numb hands and feet from time to time, am I correct?" Immediately, everyone stared at Lady Tung. Even Queen Thai looked surprised. Sacrificing herself for the fetus. Lady Tung's face was drained of all color. Holding her belly, she shook her head, looking terrified. Master Chu remained unperturbed and said seriously, "You have to take a herb known as sunleaf grass, and you have to eat it raw. Otherwise, you'll feel an itchy and prickly feeling all over your body, as if you're being bitten by 10,000 ants. Am I right?" Pressing her hands to her stomach, Lady Tung shook her head repeatedly. "No, no." Feng Wu smiled. "No? Then what have you been hiding in your hands all this time?" Immediately, all eyes were on Lady Tung. Lady Tung looked even more terrified. She did nothing but shake her head and sob. "Do you think we won't search you?" Feng Wu smirked. Meanwhile, Lady Tung seemed to have reached her limit. She swayed and fell backward. "Lady Tung! Lady Tung!" Sapphiro shouted in great agitation. She looked up and yelled at Feng Wu, "You killed Lady Tung! Feng Wu, you killed her!" Crossing her hands behind her, Feng Wu smiled but didn't say anything. "Princess Ranmil is here. Make way." Just then they heard a melodious voice. "Princess Ranmil?" Feng Wu noticed that as soon as that name was mentioned, people of both the Junwo Empire and the Sino grassland stirred. She had the feeling that it was an important person. She thus glanced at Granny Gong in bewilderment. Chapter 1609, Mysterious Princess, 4. Granny Gong was a veteran maid, and this wasn't her first time visiting the grassland, so she had to know something. But this time, she avoided Feng Wu's eyes. She avoided her. Feng Wu narrowed her eyes involuntarily and found it rather odd. However, as the head maid in charge of the daily affairs in the Crown Prince's residence, Granny Gong reacted quickly. After a brief moment of awkwardness, she was back to her normal self. Granny Gong quietly walked to Feng Wu's side and said in a low voice, "This Princess Ranmil is the most special figure on the Sino grassland. Legend has it that she's the embodiment of the moon goddess and can communicate with the eternal sky." Feng Wu asked, "What?" Granny Gong went on, But it's true that she can control the essence of grass and wood, and she has amazing medical skills. Here on the Sino grassland, she's known as the young holy physician. Feng Wu said, "Really?" Granny Gong added, "It said that she was born on an eternal night day, and a luminous bead appeared in the sky because of her birth, and lingered there until the sun rose again 3 days later. Princess Ranmil is the pearl and messiah of the grassland. All the grasslanders worship her. She's as untouchable as a goddess. She's pure and kind. Common herdsmen don't dare to look her in the eye when they meet her, and will only kiss the grass she walks on." "So," Granny Gong reminded Feng Wu in a solemn tone, "you must be very careful and cautious around Princess Ranmil." Feng Wu narrowed her eyes. Did such an innocent, harmless, and pure girl really exist in the world? By then, Princess Ranmil had arrived. "Sister!" Sapphiro jumped to her feet in pleasant surprise when she saw Ranmil. She yelled, "Sister, come here quickly. They're killing Lady Tung here. Come here." They were both princesses. While Sapphiro was jumping up and down anxiously, Ranmil remained as noble as a goddess. She seemed to walk at a quick and graceful pace when she actually wasn't that fast at all. Meanwhile, everyone seemed amazed by her elegant and innocent demeanor. She seemed to have a pure air about her, which drew all attention. Moreover, she had a unique and faint scent on her, which was pure and cool. Even Emperor Wu, who had arrived late, couldn't help but feel attracted. What's wrong with Lady Tung? Ranmil had a beautiful voice, which gave everyone the impression of beads landing on a plate. Sapphiro was about to speak, when Ranmil gave a little wave to silence her. Sapphiro had been on edge, but when her sister was around, she acted so obedient, as if she didn't know what anger was. Ranmil frowned after checking the lady's pulse. "Lady Tung's condition is serious. Why are you still stalling? Keep putting it off and both the mother and child will be in danger." Sapphiro said, "Well?" Ranmil frowned. "She needs sunleaf grass to relieve the cold energy in her. Quickly, go fetch some sunleaf grass." Sunleaf grass. The crowd was surprised. Master Chu had mentioned that grass earlier as well before Lady Tung passed out. That was to say, if Ranmil's diagnosis was correct, so was Master Chu's. Embarrassed, Sapphiro kept blinking at Ranmil. Ranmil looked at her in bewilderment. "Sister, is there something wrong with your eyes? Hold on. After I treat Lady Tung, I'll treat them for you." Chapter 16:10. Are you really my sister? Sapphiro flushed in frustration and wanted to stomp her foot. That dumb girl was always like this. How frustrating. Wait. Why do I feel the essence of sunleaf grass nearby? Closing her eyes, Ranmil tried to sense it. She then opened her beautiful blue eyes. Her gaze fixed on Lady Tung's belly. That was where the essence of grass and wood she sensed was coming from. As expected, Ranmil raised her slender hands and soon found 3 sunleaf grass stems in Lady Tung's hands. Ranmil immediately frowned. This is strange. If you have the essence of sunleaf grass on you, why don't you ingest it? Why let yourself suffer so much? Everyone had strange looks on their faces when they heard what Ranmil said. Her words indirectly confirmed what Master Chu said. And what Master Chu said indirectly confirmed Feng Wu's innocence. That is to say, Lady Tung passing out had nothing to do with the fall. It means that Lady Tung knew the sunleaf grass she was holding could treat her, but she still kept it secret. And it means that this thing had nothing to do with Princess Feng Wu. So, Lady Tung was framing Princess Feng Wu? And that means those around Emperor Wu were anything but dumb, and they figured it out almost immediately. Sapphiro looked embarrassed. After everything she planned, her younger sister had exposed everything. But she couldn't retort to her sister, because that was Princess Ranmil, the beloved savior of the grassland whom everyone loved. She was the embodiment of the legendary holy goddess of the moon. Ranmil tapped her fingers, and the essence of grass and wood floated out of the sunleaf grass. The luminescent green light jumped onto Lady Tung's fingertips, limbs, and body. It danced all over her. Everyone stared in astonishment. They had never seen such a treatment method before. Even Feng Wu narrowed her eyes. She can control the essence of grass and wood. This Princess Ranmil really is incredible. Little Phoenix was perched on Feng Wu's shoulder before she realized it, and it narrowed its eyes like Feng Wu. You see it too? Feng Wu talked to Little Phoenix in her head. Little Phoenix nodded and looked alarmed. She's a famous and well-respected figure on the grassland. If she becomes your enemy, your life will be a lot harder. Feng Wu threw a dirty look at Little Phoenix. You worry too much. She proved my innocence. Why would I become her enemy? Little Phoenix snorted. I just feel that you and her will become enemies. Feng Wu said, You're overthinking it. She stared at Ranmil as she spoke, and the more she watched how Ranmil controlled the essence, the bigger her frown got. Even Feng Wu herself didn't know why. Before long, the pale Lady Tongue slowly opened her eyes. She looked terrified when she saw Ranmil. Feng Wu knew that she was seeing it correctly. Lady Tongue was terrified. Ranmil put her hand on Lady Tongue's stick-thin arm, and there was a calming power in her eyes that resembled the ocean. Don't be afraid. I'm here. Lady Tongue stared at Ranmil and gradually quieted down. Chapter 1611. Strange Ideas Recently. Sapphiro stepped out. Is Lady Tongue all right? The others also looked at the Pearl of the Grassland in amazement. A mild smile flashed across Ranmil's fair face, and she nodded to the crowd. She's fine now. Princess Ranmil really is unparalleled in the world. Didn't Feng Wu say that Lady Tongue was in great danger and would die without immediate treatment? But as soon as Princess Ranmil got to work, she was cured. She didn't need to take any medicine. That means that Princess Ranmil is a much better doctor than Feng Wu. Feng Wu saved Her Majesty the Empress Dowager a few times before, so I was impressed. Now it seems that she's nothing compared with the princess. Let's see how proud she can be from now on. Of the noble ladies who came here this time, Empress Dugu and the Empress Dowager were the most influential ones. And they had already expressed their preferences. They didn't like Feng Wu. They really didn't. So, even if the noble ladies were genuinely impressed by Feng Wu, they would still trash her when needed, for the sake of staying correct. Ranmil promptly left after that, taking all the praise with her. Poor Feng Wu, she was trashed for nothing. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. That came out of nowhere. I pity you. Little Phoenix laughed at Feng Wu. Feng Wu threw a dirty look at it. This would never have happened if you hadn't pulled me out of bed early this morning to find Jun Linyuan. Little Phoenix smirked. As long as they still want you dead, trouble like this will keep coming. You can't just avoid it as you like. Feng Wu narrowed her eyes. Actually, she agreed with Little Phoenix. That was indeed a clever trap planned by Sapphiro. If she really wants to set me up, there will always be another opportunity. Little Phoenix asked, Are you sure it's only Sapphiro? Feng Wu said, Lady Tongue is definitely her accomplice. I don't know what Sapphiro gave her to persuade her to take part in something so dangerous. Little Phoenix smirked. Are you sure they're the only two? Feng Wu's eyes flickered. What do you mean? Little Phoenix snorted. Aren't you supposed to be very clever? Don't you know that the ones to benefit most are usually the most likely suspects? Feng Wu said, So? Little Phoenix snorted but didn't say anything else. After all, its young master was still too kind and was used to seeing the best in someone. She forgot that to achieve a certain purpose, people could make plans over a very long period of time. Is it that bad? Feng Wu glanced at Little Phoenix. To be honest, this Princess Ranmil strikes me as someone who's kind, pure, smart, and capable. So, you don't trust my instincts, then? Little Phoenix felt humiliated. It used to ignore beast kings who prostrated at its feet, but this girl... Wait, beast kings. Little Phoenix patted its own head. It was still too weak to even follow a beast king around. Where did that image of beast kings kneeling around it come from? It had been having quite a lot of strange ideas recently. At that thought, little Phoenix patted its own head and felt perplexed. Chapter 1612. She's Missing One. In the end, Feng Wu still didn't find Jun Linyuan. She didn't think much of it, but little Phoenix was very anxious, because the life and death tribulation was like a great mountain over Feng Wu's head. When it saw the way Feng Wu was walking around casually, it couldn't help but prompt her, "Don't you feel at least a little nervous?" Feng Wu said, "Well, I don't see any danger so far." Little Phoenix rolled its eyes. "By the time you see it, it'll already be too dangerous." Feng Wu said, "Hey, by the way, where's Chaoga? I haven't seen her since just then." Seeing that Qiuling was cleaning the room, Feng Wu couldn't help but ask the question. Surprised by the question, Qiuling searched her memory. Sister Chaoga went to find Master Chu, then what? Feng Wu asked. Then, tilting her head, Qiuling tried to recall, but she couldn't remember anything. Sister Chaoga didn't return after she went to look for Master Chu. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. Seeing the frown on Feng Wu's face, Qiuling stopped what she was doing and said, "Shall I go look for her?" Feng Wu nodded. Qiuling left and looked here and there. An hour later, she came back, looking disappointed. "Miss, I've searched everywhere nearby, but Miss Chaoga isn't anywhere to be found." Qiuling began to panic a little. Feng Wu frowned. "Have you searched everywhere?" Qiuling had never looked so serious. "Yes, I looked everywhere for her. I even went to young Lord Feng, but Miss Chaoga isn't there." If Feng Wu only felt something was off in the beginning, right now, she began to have a very bad feeling. "I'll go have a look." Feng Wu ran out after that. She ran so fast that she almost tore the door curtain off. She ran into Feng Sun as soon as she was outside. "You seem to be in a hurry. Where are you going? Have a date with Boss Jun?" Feng Sun grinned at Feng Wu. Feng Wu's tone had never been so solemn. "Chaoga is missing." "What?" Feng Sun paled. "Chaoga is missing? There are so many people in the tent. That shouldn't be possible." Feng Wu bolted before Feng Sun could go on. Feng Sun immediately followed her. The campsite was quite big, and each tent took up at least 100 square meters. Therefore, the entire area seemed to be covered in white tents. Feng Wu told Feng Sun and Xian Yi, "You guys, do a grid search for me. I must find her, even if I have to turn this place upside down." Only then did Feng Sun and Xian Yi realize how serious this was, and they both nodded solemnly. "But there are only 3 of us, and we need another person to cover the 4th direction." "Wait, isn't that Mu the 6th? Get him over here. We can use his help now." Feng Sun then beckoned Mu the 6th over. The teenager ran happily to his side. "Brother Feng." Feng Sun waved at him. "Have you seen Chaoga?" Mu the 6th knew Chaoga as well, so the question made him anxious. "Oh, what happened to Miss Chaoga?" Feng Sun said, "She's missing. Go to the north side and look for her. Meet us back here in half an hour." Mu the 6th said, "All right, brother." The 4 of them then separated, each taking a direction. It only took them 20 minutes to cover the entire campsite, so half an hour later, they gathered together. "She's not there. She's not there. She's not there." Chapter 1613. She's Missing Too. Feng Sun looked at Feng Wu, his face solemn. "Xiao Wu, we've searched everywhere, but we didn't see Chaoga. Don't worry though. Chaoga could have fallen asleep somewhere." "That's right," Mu the 6th said in a hurry. "Maybe she was delayed and can't come back just yet," but Feng Wu only grew uneasy. "No, Chaoga knows better than that. Something must have happened to her." Feng Wu clenched her fists. "We have to find her, see, otherwise." No. Maybe it's not that bad yet." Mu the 6th waved his hand. However, just then whoosh. There was a flash of white light and a cold blade flew at them. "Watch out." Feng Sun grabbed Feng Wu and moved her behind him. Thud. The blade wasn't meant for anyone. Instead, it buried itself in a tree trunk nearby. All the way to the hilt. together with a piece of white paper. Go! Feng Wu reacted quickly and instantly ran out at top speed. Xian Yi ran with her. However, that person was gone in a flash. They moved so fast that no one had enough time to react. Xian Yi dashed off after that, moving at an equally unbelievable speed. Feng Sun pulled the blade out of the trunk and yelled at Feng Wu, "There's a note." Feng Wu reluctantly gave up the chase and went back to Feng Sun. She then read the note in his hand. It was a fairly large piece of paper, but there was only one line on it. "I have the person you're looking for." On guard, Feng Wu narrowed her eyes. Chaoga had indeed been snatched. Looking down, Feng Wu saw another line slowly appear on the paper. "If you don't follow the instructions, the girl will die." Feng Wu clenched her fists in frustration. Feng Sun frowned. "So, they really have Chaoga? Who is this person?" Feng Wu said. "Xian Yi went after them. Let's see if he can bring back some news." But judging from how quickly that mysterious person in black disappeared, Feng Wu wasn't very optimistic. A few minutes later, Xian Yi showed up, holding his sword. "Did you catch them?" Feng Wu and Feng Sun asked the question in unison. Xian Yi's face was so dark that it looked like a stormy sky. He shook his head silently. Feng Sun pooched the trunk in frustration. Rumble! The old tree, which was so thick that 3 people could hold hands around it, was instantly smashed to pieces. Who was that, and what do they want? How dare they do such a thing to us? How dare they? Blue veins popped on Feng Sun's forehead. Feng Wu kept repeating the sentence in her head. "I have her. Follow my instructions." "What instructions? Whose instructions? Where's Jun Linyuan?" Feng Wu looked at Feng Sun. If Jun Linyuan was here now, this wouldn't be a problem for him. Feng Sun said anxiously, "Boss Jun is expecting a breakthrough any day now, and Feng is accompanying him during his seclusion. As for where he is..." Feng Sun shook his head after giving it some thought. "I'm afraid only Feng knows that. Is he safe?" Feng Wu didn't realize her tone sounded worried. This place is rife with danger now, and the spiritual essence can recover at any moment. Those magical creatures can crawl out from underground at any time. Chapter 1614, She's Missing, 3. "You don't need to worry about that." Feng Sun waved at her. "With Feng around, nothing can happen." "Is Feng that capable?" Feng Wu asked. "Feng has never lost." Feng Sun looked at Feng Wu seriously. "He doesn't fight often, but no matter who he fights, he has never lost." Feng Wu understood. But she found it rather strange. If Feng was so unfathomably capable, he should be an influential figure himself. Why would he willingly stay by Jun Linyuan's side as a mere steward? What was the secret behind it? However, that Feng Wu shook her head to get rid of the thought. Right now, her top priority was to save Chaoga. But how? That night, Feng Wu lay in bed and went back over everything that had happened in the past few days. Since that mysterious person had taken Chaoga away to threaten Feng Wu, they knew for sure how important Chaoga was to her. Hence, that person had to be her enemy. So, was it an enemy from the Junwo Empire or the Sino Grassland? If they were from the Junwo Empire, was it Feng Yanfeng? The Zhou family? The Dugu family? The second prince? Jun Wuxia? Empress Dugu? If they were from the Sino Grassland, could it be the older prince, Sapphiro, Ran Mill, or someone else? At that thought, Feng Wu bolted up from her bed. Since when did she have so many enemies? She didn't think she had done anything. Right at that moment. Knock, knock, knocked that there was a rhythmic knock at the door. Alarmed, Feng Wu stared at the door. She jumped out of bed, grabbed her dagger, and walked to the door on tiptoe. She released her spiritual essence and tried to sense the person outside. But she sensed nothing. It was dead silent outside. Feng Wu suddenly opened the door. Outside, she saw the blood-red eyes of a white rabbit as it stared at her. The moon was bright, the night was silent, and the wind was chilly. Anyone would jump when they saw a rabbit with a snapped neck staring at them. Feng Wu narrowed her eyes when she saw the dead rabbit. This indeed looked like a prank. She searched the dead rabbit and sure enough, found a small bamboo tube on its leg. Following the typical script, there would be a note in the tube which would contain an important message. Feng Wu's eyes flickered when she reached out. She paused just before she touched the bamboo tube. Rumbled that when she concentrated on her surroundings, she indeed heard the faint sound of breathing. Someone was there. Feng Wu raised her eyebrows a little. Not only was someone there, that person was also watching her every move in the dark. And they were full of expectation. At that thought, Feng Wu moved a little closer. And she was right. The person's breathing grew faster. That person was excited. They couldn't wait to see what happened next. Feng Wu smiled a little. If they wanted to laugh at her, she could always use the trap against them. That person couldn't be hiding too close by, because it would be difficult for them to run away. That person had to be hiding somewhere with the best view, because they wanted to see her fall into trouble. Chapter 16:15, She's Missing 4. Moreover, that person had to be hiding in her blind spot. Hence, Feng Wu knew where that person was hiding as she reached out for the cylinder. Whoosh! Feng Wu, who had been crouching on the ground, charged out so fast that the other person didn't have time to react. The mysterious person didn't expect Feng Wu to react so quickly. When she pounced at him, he involuntarily turned to run. Feng Wu tried to grab him but only caught the lower hem of his clothes. Although she had caught him, that person still managed to run off. What terrifying power he had! Narrowing her eyes, Feng Wu stared at him with a gaze as cold as an icy blade. Where do you think you're going? They kept running, one after another. And they were soon out of the campsite. They were running toward the dark forest behind it. Should she follow? Feng Wu followed him without hesitation. Behind her, there was a hubbub of voices. Because Feng Wu had deliberately kicked up a fuss just then and yelled that there was an assassin, the entire campsite stirred. An assassin has run into the dark forest. Miss Feng is chasing them. Catch them. Immediately, countless people ran into the forest. The man in black trembled with rage. He turned around and threw a dirty look at Feng Wu. Do you think you can catch me just by making all that noise? Feng Wu smirked. Do you think you can get away today? The man smirked. Little girl, do you think you're my match? I can easily kill you with one strike. Feng Wu said, but you can't afford the delay, can you? The mysterious man in black almost choked at those words. He finally realized why the girl had made such a scene. If it wasn't for the noise, he could have easily killed the girl when they were alone. He wouldn't need to go through all this trouble. However, he was now being chased and a lot of people would be here in no time. If he stopped to kill the girl now, he would be surrounded, and things would turn south for him. Good for you. Casting a dirty look at Feng Wu, the man in black continued running. Feng Wu snorted and went on chasing him. The man smirked. Did the girl have no idea that the longer she chased, the more dangerous it would be for her? As time went by, the voices behind them began to fall behind. A cliff showed up in front of them. The man stopped abruptly and turned to stare at Feng Wu. The dark look in his eyes looked even more eerie in the moonlight. Young lady, you're very stubborn. The man didn't run away as he walked toward Feng Wu instead. Feng Wu stood where she was, a light expression on her face. Want to kill me? Hands behind her back, she looked calmly at him. The man in black admired Feng Wu for that. She knew perfectly well that she wasn't his match, but she still dared to chase after him all by herself. What kind of courage was that? Aren't you afraid of death? The man asked curiously. I am. Then why are you still chasing me? He wanted to pat her head. Feng Wu kept her solemn gaze on him. Because I want to know where you're hiding, my friend. And you're willing to die for that? The man looked at Feng Wu in resignation. Feng Wu said, she's important. Chapter 16:16, She's Missing 5. The man looked at Feng Wu as if he was looking at an idiot. Is she more important than your own life? Feng Wu said, she's my best friend. Putting his hands behind his back, the man looked up at the silver moon in the sky, and his expression turned so brooding that his eyes looked like bottomless pits. You know what? I asked your friend the same question. The man stared at Feng Wu and his smile turned bloodthirsty. Do you know what she said? Feng Wu bit her lower lip. So, it really was you who took my friend. The man didn't deny it. That's right. It was me. Feng Wu asked, why? Did I offend you? Feng Wu kept her clear eyes on the man and wouldn't miss any emotion in his eyes. She knew that the man was wearing a skin mask, but his eyes couldn't lie. You didn't offend me, but you've offended someone you shouldn't have. The man shook his head. And that's the last person you should have offended in your life. Feng Wu was probing for information with every sentence she spoke. The man seemed to be talking casually, but if she analyzed his words closely, she could pick up a lot of useful information from them. He had kidnapped Chowga, and he was working for someone she couldn't afford to offend. Based on this description, a lot of people could already be ruled out. Who's that person? Is it a man or woman? Feng Wu stared at the man. Unfortunately, the man closed his eyes and didn't give Feng Wu any chance to study them. With a mask over his face, Feng Wu couldn't see the movement of his muscles, so she lost the advantage. He didn't answer Feng Wu's question, but suddenly smirked and stared at Feng Wu. Aren't you curious about what your friend said? Feng Wu said indifferently, do I need to guess? Crossing her arms, she said confidently, she's very loyal to me and will never betray me. Everything she does is for my own good. Are you that confident? The man stared at Feng Wu. Feng Wu nodded. He asked, what if I told you that she chose to betray you to keep herself alive? Feng Wu shook her head. Such an attempt to alienate us may work on other people but not with Chowga. She's not the brightest person in the room, so when she trusts someone, she'll never betray them. She stared at the man with cold eyes. So, she would rather choose to die herself than betray me. I'm that confident in her. The man narrowed his eyes and studied Feng Wu silently. Feng Wu suddenly smiled. Are you speechless because I'm right? The man nodded. It's true. You were right. He then heaved a long sigh. I gave her two options when I captured her at the beginning. Option 1, if she betrayed you, she could live. Option 2, if she didn't, she had to die. Do you know which one she chose? Feng Wu's pupils contracted, and she suddenly grabbed the man's arm. How is she now? She sounded very anxious. The man stared at her, for she had been able to stay calm when her own life was threatened, but now, she was so worried. Tell me, how is she now? Chapter 16-17. She actually. How is she? Feng Wu grabbed his collar and stared at him furiously. The man remained calm in the face of Feng Wu's agitation and said indifferently, she committed suicide. Smack. Feng Wu slapped the man hard in the face. The man was dumbfounded. He didn't expect that the girl would be bold enough to hit him. Feng Wu's eyes widened and her face twisted. She looked like she was going to lose control. I'm going to kill you. She survived. The man stared at Feng Wu, his face dark. Only then did Feng Wu slowly calm down, panting for breath. With a gloomy look in his eyes, the man grabbed Feng Wu's neck with his right hand. In choosing your death or hers, she chose to die herself. Although she didn't die in the end, I still respect the rules of the game, and I won't kill you. With that, the man in black finally let go of Feng Wu. Remember it. That girl saved your life. After another glance at Feng Wu, the man turned to leave. Where is she? Feng Wu yelled after him. Where are you hiding her? How can I get her back? The man waved at Feng Wu and only said one sentence. That single sentence made Feng Wu freeze on the spot. By the time she realized it, the man was already gone. Xiao Wu, are you all right? Feng Sun finally arrived at that moment. When he saw the way Feng Wu stood in bewilderment at the edge of the cliff, He immediately pulled her back and asked anxiously, Xiao Wu, are you all right? Don't frighten me. Turning around, Feng Wu saw him. Her legs gave way and she fainted. Hey, Xiao Wu, Xiao Wu. Feng Sun was so scared that his entire face went pale. Luckily, when he checked her, he saw that she was still breathing. Only then was he relieved. He then quickly took Feng Wu back to the campsite. As soon as he put her down, Master Chu arrived in a hurry. The old man usually moved at an unhurried pace, but he was running very fast now. After he checked her pulse, how is it? How is Xiao Wu? Feng Sun was almost in tears. Master Chu heaved a long sigh. It's nothing life-threatening. The girl was under a lot of pressure and her emotions fluctuated so much that she passed out. She'll be fine after some rest. He smiled bitterly. Come to think of it, the girl has indeed been under a lot of pressure. She had to save Her Majesty on our way here, and since arriving at the Sinal grassland, she was wronged over and over again. She's barely had a peaceful day. No wonder she feels so much stress. What should we do? Feng Sun didn't expect to hear that. He had thought that the girl was as carefree as he was. Soon, word of Feng Wu passing out got around. Hearing that, Emperor Wu was surprised. He stared at Master Chu and asked, I didn't know that that lively girl could pass out. And it was because of stress? How strange. Before he knew it, Master Chu was taking Feng Wu's side. Your Majesty, it's not like that. Really? Emperor Wu gave Master Chu an amused look. Master Chu smiled bitterly. Miss Feng Wu's best friend was kidnapped, and we don't know if she's dead or alive. It's inevitable that Miss Wu is worried. Are you talking about that Chaoga girl? Emperor Wu didn't expect the friendship between the two girls to be so deep. Master Chu immediately nodded. Yes, it's that Chaoga girl. She's been kidnapped, and we haven't received any news yet. She fainted because of a mere girl? Isn't Feng Wu supposed to be able to do everything? Emperor Wu suddenly realized that. Chapter 1618, Unexpected News. Emperor Wu never thought that Feng Wu would fall ill one day. The girl had always struck him as very smart. Just like with Jun Linyuan, nothing ever seemed to baffle her. As it turned out, she also had such a fragile side. The thought finally made Emperor Wu feel pity for Feng Wu. What about that brat, Jun Linyuan? Emperor Wu stared at the others. Granny Gong stepped out and reported calmly, His Royal Highness is cultivating. That immediately rendered Emperor Wu speechless. Every time when Jun Linyuan went away to cultivate, he would come back a much more capable man. Therefore, it was great news to both the royal family and the Junwu Empire. However, it wasn't necessarily the case for Emperor Wu, since his brat was growing more and more unruly. Tell them to look for that Chaoga girl carefully. Emperor Wu took another long look at Feng Wu before he finally left. Word of Chaoga's kidnapping quickly spread. People in the campsite reacted differently. Mrs. Swa laughed out loud when she heard the news, and Mrs. Dugu was over the moon. So was Empress Dugu. It was dead silent outside. Feng Wu slowly woke up. Miss, you're awake. Qiuling had been staying with Feng Wu. Seeing that she had woken up, Qiuling immediately rushed to her side. Rubbing her head, Feng Wu felt a throbbing pain. Her body hurt all over, as if she had been crushed by a mountain. The pain made it difficult for her to breathe. Miss, are you all right? Shall I find Master Chu? Qiuling was so anxious that she had tears in her eyes. Feng Wu waved at her. It's okay. I'll be fine after some rest. Don't run around. Sit. All right, Qiuling did as she was told. After Chaoga went missing, Qiuling had been so anxious that she got spots around her mouth. Then, her mistress fell sick as well, and Qiuling really began to panic. Thus, she wouldn't look away from Feng Wu, fearing that she might disappear as well. Seeing how anxious Qiuling was, Feng Wu felt sorry. She was the decision-maker in the family. If she fell sick, what would the rest of the family do? She had to pull herself together. At that thought, Feng Wu took a deep breath and forced herself to sit up. Miss, Qiuling immediately put a pillow behind Feng Wu and helped her sit up. How do you feel now? Feng Wu nodded. It's no big deal. What's going on outside? Hearing that, Xiuling started weeping. The news of Miss Chowga's disappearance has gone out, and people have been saying all sorts of things. Some even say that Miss Chowga is gone. All the worry was so overwhelming for Xiuling that she cried. But Feng Wu was very calm. Don't worry. Chowga is still alive. Really? Miss, is that true? Xiuling's eyes glittered with tears. Feng Wu nodded. Although I don't know where she is, and she may be in a difficult situation right now, at least, she's still trying to survive and is waiting for us to save her. Just then, hasty footsteps came from outside. With a whoosh, the curtain was lifted up. Looking up, Feng Wu saw Feng Sun's sweaty face. Before she could say anything, Feng Sun rushed in, grabbed her hand, and dragged her away. Xiao Wu quickly. You need to see this. Chapter 1619. Miss Feng, my condolences. Feng Wu had never seen Feng Sun so nervous, and she suddenly had a very bad feeling. What's wrong? She asked as she ran, taking a deep breath. Feng Sun held her slender shoulders and said solemnly, Xiao Wu, you have to promise me. No matter what happens, you have to keep it together, okay? Feng Wu narrowed her clear eyes. What happened? After much hesitation, Feng Sun finally said quickly, Someone found a body in the Doma River up ahead. Arg, Xiuling looked terrified. Feng Wu stared at Feng Sun, her head blank. She grabbed Feng Sun's sleeve and pursed her lips, unable to say a word. Xiao Wu, calm down. You have to stay calm. You haven't seen it, right? Don't worry just yet. Feng Sun was almost in tears. Feng Wu's eyes went teary. You wouldn't have come to me if you weren't sure. It was Feng Sun's turn to be speechless. Indeed, he wouldn't have come to Feng Wu if that female body that had been fished out of the water hadn't fitted Chowga's age and body shape. Anyway, seeing is believing. You can't give up now, okay? Xiao Wu, pull yourself together. Feng Sun was nervous. I know. Feng Wu wiped her tears away and asked coldly, Where is it? Take me there. Feng Sun quickly led Feng Wu over. The Doma River wasn't far from the campsite, and Feng Wu ran as fast as she could. Although she had learned some information from the man in black earlier, given his demeanor, he was capable of doing just about anything. Out of my way! Out of my way! A lot of people had gathered there when Feng Wu arrived. Dugu Mingxi, Dugu Yamo, Zhuo Qingyu, and even Zhuo Qingxian, Zhuo Qingyu's oldest brother, were there, as well as Jun Wuxia and Jun Wuyu. Seeing Feng Wu's arrival, Zhuo Qingyu smirked strangely. Everyone was discussing among themselves. She's Feng Wu. The dead one was her friend. She was Duan Chowga, and I heard that she only just arrived at the campsite. I've never heard that name before. You wouldn't have. Duan Chowga wasn't like a certain person who runs around offending others. Do you think Feng Wu upset the wrong people and they took revenge on her friend? Poor Duan Chowga. She was too young to die. So, do you still want to play with Feng Wu? You may end up getting killed. I won't dare. Feng Wu stood there and stared at the dead body on the ground. She remained silent for a while. Zhuo Qingyu and Dugu Yamo looked at each other. Dugu Yamo had shut herself in ever since that embarrassing incident last time at the Immortal Flower Festival. She gloated over Feng Wu's predicament and couldn't contain her satisfaction. Miss Feng Wu, let the dead rest in peace. My condolences. Dugu Yamo stepped out of the crowd with a solemn face, pretending to be sad. They would never miss such a great opportunity to take revenge on Feng Wu. Zhuo Qingyu also stepped out with feigned sadness. She even patted Feng Wu on the shoulder and let tears come to her eyes. Feng Wu, Chowga probably offended someone and died such a miserable death. But we can't bring the dead back to life. You should put away your sorrow now and bury her first. Otherwise, the body will decompose soon. Chapter 1620. Duan Chowga is dead. Zhuo Qingyu might sound as if she was comforting Feng Wu, but every word she said was to upset Feng Wu. That was, if the dead person really was Chaoga. Feng Wu still stood there in a daze with her head lowered, but she didn't miss any movements around her. She saw the expressions on every single face. Was Chaoga's kidnapper here in the crowd? If this body had been put here to scare Feng Wu, then that person had to be here. At that thought, Feng Wu glanced around the crowd. The others were expecting to see Feng Wu break down and cry, but all Feng Wu gave them was silence and more silence. It disappointed them greatly. Feng Wu isn't even crying. Wasn't Duan Chaoga her best friend? Now that Duan Chaoga's dead, why doesn't she look sad at all? How cold-blooded is she? I thought she would at least shed some tears, but her eyes aren't even wet. Even Miss Sua, an outsider, is crying, but Feng Wu. How can anyone be so cold-blooded? The public opinion was very disadvantageous toward Feng Wu. Dugu Yamo and the others exchanged looks, and they all looked very satisfied. They were delighted to see Feng Wu being scorned and sneered at. Seeing Feng Wu standing there in a trance-like state, Feng Sun couldn't help but give her a nudge. Xiao Wu? Xiao Wu? What? Feng Wu asked calmly. Feng Sun was a little scared. Was Xiao Wu acting abnormally because she was so heartbroken? Please don't be so sad. Life has to continue, and we have to move on. Feng Sun patted her on the shoulder. That's right. Brother Feng has a point. Feng Wu, don't be too sad. We're all here for you. Jun Wuxia was guffawing inwardly, but she managed to put on a sad face. She was sure that the sadder they appeared, the angrier Feng Wu would be. However, Feng Wu suddenly snickered. Is Feng Wu laughing? Has she lost her mind? How can she laugh when her best friend is dead? Is Feng Wu crazy? How can anyone be so cold-blooded? While everyone was talking among themselves, Feng Wu turned to leave despite Sua Qingyu's joy over her predicament. Xiao Wu. Feng Sun held Feng Wu's hand in bewilderment and frowned. The others all looked at Feng Wu in disdain. Her best friend had died for her, but she was going to leave just like that. Did she even have a heart? Feng Wu, that's your best friend. Aren't you going to look after her remains? Are you going to just leave her body lying here? Sua Qingyu yelled after Feng Wu. Feng Wu smiled a little. My best friend? Who told you that this body is my best friend's? She wasn't. Everyone turned to look at Sua Qingyu. Before Feng Wu arrived, it was Miss Sua here who had casually revealed that this body was Chaoga's, Feng Wu's best friend. Otherwise, a regular dead body would never have attracted so much attention. Feng Wu, just because Duan Chaoga is dead and you can't use her anymore, you're not going to admit that she was your best friend? I'm really disappointed in you. I didn't know you were this sort of person. Sua Qingyu sounded regretful. Chapter 1621. Is Feng Wu heartless? Dugu Yamo wanted to applaud Sua Qingyu. She didn't yell hysterically but only sounded disappointed. It was enough to make other people sneer at Feng Wu. Good job, Sua Qingyu. Feng Wu looked at the faces in the crowd and suddenly smiled. That's right. She's just a nobody. What value does she have after she's dead? She waved at them and strolled off, her hands behind her back. That was unexpected. Many people here had found Feng Wu quite pleasant because of what she had done recently, but after hearing what she said, their opinion of her quickly dropped to the very bottom. This Feng Wu is so vile. That's right. Even if a person can't cultivate or doesn't know any medicine or formation skills, I can still be friends with them as long as they have a good character. So true. So what if she can cultivate and knows all those skills? With her bad behavior, no one will dare get close to her. Do you think His Royal Highness knows about her behavior? Of course not. She must behave differently around His Royal Highness compared with when she's with us. Is it possible that you've been misled? Maybe Feng Wu isn't like that. She didn't let it show before because she was still weak and had to play nice. Now that she's under His Royal Highness's protection, what more does she need? Her true nature is now showing. Feng Wu is so. The crowd didn't use to dislike Feng Wu so much, But people tended to follow the crowd, and when Zhuo Qingyu and Dugu Yamo steered the public opinion in that direction, it became justified to trash Feng Wu. But two people there didn't think so. One was Qiuling and the other one was Feng Sun. Qiuling had grown up with Feng Wu and knew Feng Wu better than anyone else. She had a very clear idea about the relationship between Feng Wu and Chaoge, so she believed from the very beginning that her mistress was doing this for a reason. Needless to say, Feng Sun trusted Feng Wu. He left after Feng Wu did. The crowd slowly dispersed, but in a corner in the reeds point two people were crouching there and whispering to each other. What do you think? Is Feng Wu really that heartless, or did she notice that it isn't Chaoge's body? Either way, public opinion is against her now. That's right. I didn't expect it to be so easy to smear her name. I thought it would be a lot harder. All humans have their weaknesses, and Feng Wu's is that she's too proud to explain herself. We took advantage of Duan Chaoge's disappearance and found a body in the water, but I didn't expect it to work so well. So what if Feng Wu behaves well around His Royal Highness? When His Majesty, Her Majesty, and the Empress Dowager hear about her heartless behavior, they won't think highly of Feng Wu. Especially Her Majesty the Empress Dowager. Her Majesty's impression of Feng Wu improved after she saved her several times, but after today, Her Majesty will dislike Feng Wu all over again. I'm still not close with Her Majesty. Qingyu, I'm afraid that you'll have to put in a good word for me. My dear princess, please don't worry. Chapter 1622, The Truth. Crunched that they heard the sound of someone stepping on the leaves. Who's there? The two crouching girls abruptly turned their heads. Their eyes widened in astonishment when they saw who it was. Because it was none other than the person they had been talking about, Feng Wu. Jun Wuxia and Zhuo Qingyu sprang up and shrieked in terror. Feng Wu had a calm look in her eyes and a half-smile on her face. Her eyes were like bottomless pits. Jun Wuxia pointed at Feng Wu. When did you arrive? What are you doing here? Feng Wu smirked. Didn't the two of you come here 5 minutes ago? That was to say, Feng Wu had arrived before they did. Which meant that she had heard everything they said. You? Jun Wuxia glared at Feng Wu. So you heard it all. So what? Everyone is already convinced that you're a heartless person. Feng Wu had a cold look in her eyes. What if your conversation gets out? Haha. Jun Wuxia laughed out loud. Feng Wu, how naive can you be? Do you not know how much people dislike you now? Do you think any of them will believe you? Plus, do you have any evidence? So, Feng Wu, how dumb are you to believe that you can threaten us with this? Although they had been caught red-handed, Jun Wuxia and Zhuo Qingyu remained very arrogant. Feng Wu narrowed her eyes and looked unperturbed. It was true, she had been very nervous when she heard the news at first, but she soon realized that according to that man from the night before, Chaoge's life wasn't in immediate danger, so the body couldn't be hers. But if the man in black hadn't put it there, who did? Feng Wu had been studying all the faces earlier. When the other people were accusing her of being heartless, she had looked at all their faces. From the subtle expressions, she was able to guess their thoughts. Jun Wuxia and Zhuo Qingyu were so pleased that they couldn't hide their excitement. Therefore they were her top suspects. She was right. As soon as Feng Wu walked away, they couldn't help but reveal the truth. Jun Wuxia and Zhuo Qingyu exchanged satisfied smiles. So what if you caught us? What proof do you have? But at that moment, they heard voices from the reeds. Either way, public opinion is against her now. That's right. I didn't expect it to be so easy to smear her name. I thought it would be a lot harder. All humans have their weaknesses, and Feng Wu's is that she's too proud to explain herself. We took advantage of Duan Chaoge's disappearance and found a body in the water, but I didn't expect it to work so well. One voice belonged to Jun Wuxia, and the other belonged to Zhuo Qingyu. They sounded as real as a record, down to the breathing and pauses. Jun Wuxia and Zhuo Qingyu froze on the spot. Jun Wuxia stared at Feng Wu so hard that her eyes popped out. She glared at Feng Wu. What did you do? Chapter 1623. Why wouldn't I dare? Feng Wu chuckled. What can I do apart from record how you and Miss Swa are here crouching on the ground and talking about framing other people? I was just playing the audio. You'll soon be able to see the two of you on screen. Recorded. Jun Wuxia and Zhou Qingyu looked like they had been struck by lightning. Don't tell me you have the spiritual fossil stone. Where did you get that? I remember that we have one in the Imperial Vault, but that's my father's. Crossing her hands behind her back, Feng Wu gave her a half-smile. Is the Imperial Vault the only place that has a spiritual fossil stone? Princess Sapphiro gave me a lot of gifts to express her apology. Of course Jun Wuxia knew about knights now apologizing to Feng Wu with precious gifts, so she believed that explanation. Jun Wuxia glared at Feng Wu. What do you want? Talk about going for wool and coming home shorn. That was Jun Wuxia and Zhou Qingyu's situation now. Jun Wuxia threw a dirty look at Zhou Qingyu and found the latter a complete idiot. The woman had promised that it was a foolproof plan, but now... Zhou Qingyu bit her lower lip, but her eyes darted around. Speak. What on earth do you want? Jun Wuxia stared at Feng Wu. Feng Wu raised an eyebrow. Princess Jun Wuxia, don't you want to see yourself crouching on the ground? I can't wait. Shut up. The thought of seeing herself crouching on the ground and speaking those words to Zhou Qingyu made her feel shameful beyond measure. Tell me, what will it take for you to remove the images in the stone? Crossing her hands behind her back, Feng Wu said, but I don't want to delete the recording. Jun Wuxia stared at Feng Wu. Feng Wu, do you think you can threaten me with that thing? Feng Wu nodded. I can. It didn't take a genius to imagine the damage it could do to Jun Wuxia and Zhou Qingyu's reputations. Fine. You win. Jun Wuxia took a deep breath and fought down her rage. Her father already wasn't happy with her from what happened before, and had told her to stay in her tent to reflect on her misdeeds. If he heard how she had damaged the imperial family's reputation again, he would definitely remove all her titles. Just say it. What do you want? The threat worked. What she didn't know was that Feng Wu had no such stone, nor had she recorded any images. The two voices earlier had been by Little Phoenix. The ability to mimic voices was a new skill Little Phoenix obtained after it woke up this time. Feng Wu smiled at Jun Wuxia. Slap yourself? Jun Wuxia asked, what? Crossing her hands behind her back, Feng Wu smiled. You and Zhou Qingyu, slap yourselves. Right now. Jun Wuxia stared at Feng Wu. How dare you? Feng Wu raised her chin proudly. I said it, didn't I? Why wouldn't I dare? Jun Wuxia said, you. Feng Wu said, fine, don't slap yourself. I'll play the recording and save my own reputation. As for you and Zhou Qingyu. Jun Wuxia was so angry that blue veins popped on her forehead. But before she could make a decision, Zhou Qingyu moved first. She slapped herself loudly. Chapter 1624. The Best I Can Do. There were two more crisp sounds as Zhou Qingyu slapped herself twice more. Jun Wuxia's eyes were filled with hatred as she glared at Feng Wu. Since she didn't have a choice, Jun Wuxia had to do as she was told. There came the sounds of slaps. Are you satisfied now? Jun Wuxia was so angry that her eyes went red. She was a princess and the daughter of the respected Empress Dugu of the Empire, but now she was being threatened by a nobody. This had to be the most humiliating thing to ever happen to her in her life. But Feng Wu put her hands behind her back and shook her head. Not hard enough. Feng Wu. Jun Wuxia spoke in a threatening voice. Feng Wu gave Jun Wuxia a half-smile. Jun Wuxia drew in her breath. There came the sounds of slaps. Meanwhile, Zhou Qingyu had been slapping herself obediently. Jun Wuxia had to swallow her rage, and she swore to herself that she would make Feng Wu die a miserable death one day. But right now, she had no choice but to slap herself. Happy now? She glared at Feng Wu. Feng Wu gave her a sympathetic look. My princess, if this is your way of expressing your apology, I think I should show the others the stone. Feng Wu, you've gone too far. Jun Wuxia was almost driven mad. If her rage could burn, she would be on fire by now. Without another word, Feng Wu turned to leave. Jun Wuxia knew that as soon as Feng Wu left, she would play the recording. By then, she would become the laughingstock of the entire campsite. No, the entire empire. People would laugh at the royal family, and when that happened, her parents and older brother would probably kill her. Fine. I'll do it. I'll do it. This time, she used her real strength, and that she slapped herself as hard as she could, and after a few slaps, there was blood at the corner of her mouth. Her eyes burned with hatred when she stared at Feng Wu, as if she wanted to bore holes into Feng Wu's skin. What an unspeakable shame. There were the sounds of slaps. They filled the air. The sounds of the two girls slapping themselves come one after another, and Feng Wu was very pleased. In the end, their cheeks were so swollen that they looked like pigs. Apart from their faces, their hands were equally swollen. Feng Wu only waved at them when she saw that they were about to faint, and she said grumpily, Jun Wuxia, did you have to be so hard on yourself? Aren't you worried about killing yourself accidentally? Jun Wuxia was furious. Feng Wu told her that she wasn't slapping herself hard enough, but she was now singing a different tune. Unfortunately, Jun Wuxia was too weak to even glare at Feng Wu. Jun Wuxia was about to say something, when Feng Wu waved at her like she was shooing away a fly. Fine, fine. Off you go. Jun Wuxia wouldn't leave. She stared at Feng Wu and said, We had a deal. You said you would give that stone to me. Feng Wu gave her a you idiot look. She never had that stone, so what was she supposed to give to Jun Wuxia? When did I say that I'll give it to you? Feng Wu asked grumpily. Jun Wuxia was so angry that her veins popped. You said so. You said so yourself. Feng Wu said, That's what you said. I never promised you anything. Jun Wuxia said, You. Looking at Jun Wuxia and Zhuo Qingyu's swollen faces, Feng Wu said impatiently, The best I can do is. Chapter 1625. Untitled. Feng Wu said, The best I can do is promise you that if you stop bothering me, I won't show this to everyone else. Feng Wu. Jun Wuxia glared at Feng Wu. You broke your promise. Feng Wu said, Heh, Jun Wuxia, you sound as if you always keep your promises. Jun Wuxia said, You. Feng Wu said, If you do, then why are you doing this again when you promised last time that you would leave me alone? Jun Wuxia said, You. Feng Wu said, So, what's wrong with me answering in kind when dealing with an untrustworthy person like you? Jun Wuxia said, You. Feng Wu said, So, if you mess with me again, I'll expose you. Heh, I can't wait to restore my reputation. Jun Wuxia said, Feng Wu. Feng Wu chuckled. Jun Wuxia, do you know what will happen if you keep acting so willfully? Feng Wu didn't go into detail, but Jun Wuxia wasn't a fool, and she could certainly understand the threat behind it. Zhuo Qingyu immediately tugged at Jun Wuxia's sleeve. Jun Wuxia glared at Zhuo Qingyu and decided that she would settle accounts with her later. Feng Wu, you win. I won't forget this. With one last threat, Jun Wuxia stormed off. Feng Wu smiled as she watched Jun Wuxia and Zhuo Qingyu leave. Little Phoenix only came out of its hiding place in the reeds after making sure that the other two had left. It then landed on Feng Wu's shoulder. Poor Jun Wuxia. When she and Zhuo Qingyu walked out of the reeds, they ran into an old friend, Feng Sun. Arg! Feng Sun jumped in fright when he saw them coming out of the reeds. Hey, who are you? Wait, isn't it Princess Jun Wuxia? And this is Zhuo Qingyu? Feng Sun stared at them in disbelief. Because with their swollen faces, they looked like completely different people. Jun Wuxia's face already hurt a lot. When the teenager she had a crush on saw her at her ugliest, She was so frustrated that she burst into tears. Hey, Jun Wuxia. Before Feng Sun could ask anything, Jun Wuxia had run off, crying loudly. Zhuo Qingyu also picked up the lower hem of her dress and hurried off after Jun Wuxia. Feng Sun scratched his head. He couldn't help but ask Feng Wu when he saw her, Xiao Wu, did you give them a hard time again? Feng Wu threw a dirty look at him. What do you mean by give them a hard time? One is a princess and the other is a daughter of the Zhuo family. How am I, a commoner, supposed to give them a hard time? Feng Sun threw a dirty look at Feng Wu. Of course you can. With your intelligence, even Her Majesty the Empress Dowager has to tolerate you, let alone the princess. Feng Wu said, Hey, Feng Sun, don't drag me down with you. Her Majesty the Empress Dowager still dislikes me a lot. Not necessarily. Feng Sun grinned. From what I've heard, Her Majesty likes you a lot better now. How so? Feng Wu asked. At least she's not trashing you whenever she has the chance, said Feng Sun. Feng Wu said, Is that what you call likes me a lot better? Feng Sun said, Well, it's improving, isn't it? You helped her make 2 breakthroughs. Feng Wu shook her head with a wry smile. If Her Majesty really was a grateful person, she wouldn't still be unaffected after all the help I've given her. She might look like a kind old lady, but deep down, she has a heart of stone. Chapter 1626, Untitled. Feng Sun said, Xiao Wu actually Her Majesty is? Feng Wu waved him off. She's your grandmother. It's only natural for you to take her side, but please don't say nice things about her in front of me, her victim, okay? How could Feng Wu not be angry at her? She wasn't a saint and she had a temper. Anyone would be angry if their kindness was constantly repaid with ingratitude. Seeing that even someone as calm as Feng Wu had lost her temper, Feng Sun raised his hands. All right, we'll stop talking about Her Majesty. Let's change the topic. By the way, did you really slap Jun Wuxia and Zhuo Qingyu? Feng Wu said, No, they did it themselves. Feng Sun asked, Did they slap each other? Feng Wu smacked her own head. Hey, why didn't I think of that? I should have told them to slap each other. That way, Zhuo Qingyu might not hold a grudge against Jun Wuxia, but Jun Wuxia would definitely hate Zhuo Qingyu for it. Zhuo Qingyu's life would be a lot harder if that had happened. Feng Sun was rendered speechless. Feng Wu said in resignation, Well, I've missed that chance, and Zhuo Qingyu took the easy way out. I'll make a mental note of it and get back at them later. Feng Sun smiled wryly. She didn't give the princess a hard time, but she made it sound like Jun Wuxia was her pet, and she would teach the 2 of them a lesson whenever she felt like it. Feng Sun said, Are you so sure that Jun Wuxia will let you do whatever you want with her? Feng Wu said confidently, They'll have to, unless they want their reputations ruined. Feng Sun asked, Do you have something on them? Crossing her hands behind her back, Feng Wu stuck out her chest. I have my ways, so don't you worry. Hey, did you catch the guy? Earlier by the river, Feng Wu and Feng Sun split up. 2 people had caught Feng Wu's attention back then. One was Jun Wuxia, and the other was a young senile person wearing a hat. He had caught Feng Wu's attention because of the expression on his face when Feng Wu appeared unaffected by the dead body. There was definitely something wrong with him. Therefore, Feng Wu had Feng Sun follow him. How did it go? Feng Wu raised an eyebrow. Feng Sun's eyes lit up, and he looked excited. Xiao Wu, you're a genius. Out of all those people, you picked him. How did you do it? Feng Wu said grumpily, Reading people involves profound knowledge. A brainless person will never be able to learn how to do it. Just forget about it. The hard blow rendered Feng Sun speechless. Luckily, Feng Sun was used to feeling defeated since he was little because of how smart Jun Linyuan was, and he wasn't affected by her words at all. So, what's that man's deal? Feng Wu asked Feng Sun as she walked toward the door. Feng Sun said, There's definitely something wrong with that man, but I haven't gotten an answer out of him yet. Feng Wu glanced at him. Feng Sun waved his hands and looked all innocent. I tried, but he's just so stubborn. I used every method I could think of, but he just won't talk. Feng Wu looked unconvinced. Really? Feng Sun said seriously, really? Xiao Wu, there's definitely something wrong with this man. I followed him all the way into the Grasslanders' campsite. He was all sneaky and kept looking around. Finally, he entered Sapphiro's tent. Chapter 1627, Untitled. Feng Wu said, really? Feng Sun said, but he soon came back out with a basket and headed for the other side of the hill, so I followed him. Feng Wu narrowed her eyes. Feng Sun said, there's a secret karst cave there. If this guy hadn't led me there, I would never have found that place. Feng Wu asked, then? Feng Sun said, after that guy walked into the cave, somehow, he turned around and saw me. Feng Wu looked at Feng Sun in resignation. Feng Sun looked perfectly innocent. I didn't expect him to turn around so suddenly. If I didn't go after him, what if he ran away? Feng Wu said, you idiot. He saw your shadow on the wall. Why wouldn't he turn his head? Feng Sun said, well, you have a point. Then this guy sounded the alarm. Everything happened all at once, and I didn't have time to react. By the time I caught that man with the hat, the other people in the cave had already run off. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. Feng Sun looked troubled. I looked around and saw that there were indeed traces of people living there before, and someone had indeed been held there as a prisoner, but I can't say that it was Chaoga. Feng Wu had a strong feeling that she might have lost a lead to find and save Chaoga. Without saying another word, Feng Wu quickened her pace. She covered the 10-minute distance in 7 minutes. Where is he? Feng Wu turned around and stared at Feng Sun when she saw the empty cave. Feng Sun looked completely at a loss. I knocked him out before I left and tied him to a pillar in the cave. I thought I had taken all precautions. How could he have possibly escaped? Damn it. It's all my fault. Feng Sun felt very guilty. It was a very important lead in saving Chaoga, and Xiao Wu had forced that man to reveal himself at the cost of her own reputation. She had then handed the task to Feng Sun, but I'm such an idiot. Feng Sun slapped himself, his eyes filled with guilt. Feng Wu was also anxious, but she calmed down when she saw how worried Feng Sun was. With what had happened, there was no point blaming him. He wanted to help Chaoga, but things simply hadn't gone their way. Feng Sun had always been a little careless, and Feng Wu hoped that this incident would help him overcome that shortcoming. Feng Wu ignored Feng Sun, who was still blaming himself. There was an intelligent look in her narrowed eyes. She had always believed that one could learn a lot from behavioral analysis. When she looked at the marks around the pillar, she smiled a little. He wasn't going anywhere. Thump. Feng Wu kicked the wall of the cave. Xiao Wu, the cave might collapse if you do that. However, before Feng Sun could finish, he heard a loud thump, and the ground trembled. He yanked Feng Wu back and shielded her with his own body. When the dust settled, they saw a man huddled in a rectangular hollow. It was none other than It's You. Feng Sun almost exploded when he saw who it was. That was the guy he had tied up before. He thought that the man had escaped. As it turned out, he had been hiding beneath them. You bastard! You tried to trick me? Feng Sun felt like he had just been swindled. Chapter 1628. This shouldn't be Feng Wu's reaction. When he saw the teenager with a hat huddled in the small hole, he thought he was going to explode. You didn't run away? Feng Sun smacked him in frustration. The teenager grunted and glanced at Feng Sun, but he wouldn't say a word. You actually pretended to escape. That was bold. With those words, Feng Sun smacked him again. The teenager snorted, turned his head away and ignored Feng Sun, which infuriated the latter. Feng Wu watched him the entire time, her hands behind her back. She studied him carefully with her cold eyes, and the look gave the teenager the creeps. Next to them, Feng Sun had already taken out a dagger and put it against the teenager's neck. You know I can kill you, right? Feng Sun threatened him. The teenager glanced at Feng Sun with contempt in his eyes. That look completely set Feng Sun off. His dagger suddenly fell. Whoosh! The blade cut the teenager's face from his right eyelid to his jaw, leaving a bloody gash. The wound was long, deep, and horrendous. With all the blood, it was a terrifying scene. Feng Wu didn't bat an eyelash and only looked at the teenager indifferently. But they were surprised by the teenager's reaction. He didn't even grunt when the wound was suddenly inflicted on him. Not only that, his muscles didn't even twitch. Holding the dagger that was dripping blood, Feng Sun stared at the teenager. "Who are you? Speak." The teenager didn't even look up and only gave Feng Sun an indifferent glance. Feng Sun was furious. "How stubborn." "Very well. You're not talking, are you?" Enraged, Feng Sun moved the tip of his dagger to the teenager's chest. "I'd love to see how lively you can be when I stab you here." In a normal situation, such a threat should work. But to Feng Sun's surprise, the teenager slowly looked up and gave Feng Sun a contemptuous look. "Heck, Feng Sun." No one had ever provoked Feng Sun like this before. His face turned red, and he pressed his dagger down. Whoosh! There was the sound of metal piercing flesh. Feng Sun only returned to himself when a few drops of blood splashed onto his cheeks. "I killed him?" Seeing the dagger in the teenager's chest, Feng Sun turned his head with difficulty and stared at Feng Wu. Feng Wu said, "You were too fast for me to stop." Feng Sun pulled a long face. "What should we do now? The clues end here." "Xiao Wu, I'm so sorry." Seeing how disappointed Feng Sun was, Feng Wu shook her head with a wry smile. "Xiao Wu, I'm sorry." Feng Sun felt too regretful and guilty to meet her eyes. Feng Wu looked from Feng Sun to the teenager. "If he's dead, he's dead. It's not like he's anyone important. Let's go." She waved at Feng Sun. "What?" Feng Sun looked at Feng Wu in bewilderment. Something struck him as odd. "We're leaving?" He stared at Feng Wu. Feng Wu said, "He's dead, and so is the lead. There's no point staying here anymore. Let's go." Chapter 1629, Answer in Kind. Feng Sun looked at Feng Wu and said, "All right." After that, he left with Feng Wu. However, Feng Wu stopped when they were just outside the cave. Feng Sun stared at her in bewilderment. "Xiao Wu." Feng Wu immediately covered his mouth. Feng Sun stared at her with wide eyes. Feng Wu then pulled him aside, hid behind a rock, and pointed at the cave. Feng Sun was smart enough to take the hint immediately, and took a look himself. Lowering his voice, he spoke to Feng Wu in disbelief. "You mean he's not dead?" Feng Wu nodded. "That's impossible. I killed him myself. How can he not be dead? I'm pretty sure I stabbed him in the heart." Feng Wu gave him a grumpy look. "His heart is on the right." Feng Sun was rendered speechless. But he really felt that he had stabbed his heart. At that thought, Feng Sun wanted to stick his head out, but Feng Wu stopped him. She said, "That man is very vigilant. Let's wait a bit longer." They then waited for as long as 15 minutes. After that, thanks to Feng Wu's warning, Feng Sun watched as the dead teenager opened his eyes. He sat up from the cold ground, looked down at the red blood on his chest, and smirked maliciously. There I was wondering how impressive the young lord of the Junhua Empire could be, but that was it. He wanted to kill me, did he? He has no idea that Cat 9 has 9 lives. Oh, Feng Sun, don't blame me for playing tricks. Blame yourself for being foolish and naive. Satisfied, Cat 9 was ready to leave. Feng Sun wanted to go after him. But Feng Wu grabbed his hand. Feng Sun stared at Feng Wu. "Xiao Wu." He wanted to kill that man. The man actually dared to trick him. The famous young Lord Feng wouldn't stand for such a trick. That was an outright humiliation. But Feng Wu stopped him and smiled. "Don't you think that we'll find a lot more useful information if we follow him?" Feng Sun listened to her advice. On second thought, Feng Sun realized that he could vent his anger if he rushed out now, But what about after that? Information obtained from an interrogation might not be true. But if they followed him, they would secretly wait for the right time. They would answer in kind. Don't blame me for playing tricks. Blame yourself for being too foolish and naive. Heh. Feng Sun nodded to Feng Wu and agreed. Hence, Feng Wu and Feng Sun followed Cat 9 through the giant karst cave. Poor Cat 9. He could never have expected that someone would see through his fake death. No one had ever discovered it after all these years. Relaxed and relieved, Cat 9 let his guard down as he strolled casually through the cave. It looked like a plain cave, but one would realize how the passage meandered once they started walking through it. Feng Wu memorized the route quietly as they walked. Soon she had a map of the cave in her head. She thought, luckily, we have Cat 9 as a guide. Otherwise, we could easily get lost in here. Just then, suddenly, Chapter 1630, she's right. Just then, suddenly that they heard footsteps ahead of them, taking Feng Sun to hide behind a rock nearby. Feng Wu focused and listened. Cat 9, what took you so long? A cold female voice rang out. Gosh, don't get me started. I was almost killed. Cat 9 waved at her. Killed? Are you all right? Cat 9 gloated. Of course I am. You know me, I have 9 lives. Teehee, that young lord of the Junwo Empire is an idiot. He really thinks I'm dead. I fooled him just like that. Haha. Did you offend a young lord of the Junwo Empire? Yes, I did. Big deal. He's so dumb that he deserves it. Anyway, he thinks I'm dead. Ha. Feng Sun was so angry that he wanted to jump out and punch him. An idiot? Don't. How dare he use such words? It was too much for Feng Sun to bear, and he was furious. Feng Wu immediately stopped Feng Sun and shook her head. She then mouthed, think about the big picture. They still have Chaoga. The thought of Chaoga immediately made Feng Sun stop. However, he still clenched his fists in anger, and blue veins popped on the back of his hands. Alright, since you've faked your death once, don't use this face anymore. You may ruin the master's plan if they see you again. Cat 9 said, don't you worry. Just leave it to me. By the way, where's Master? Feng Wu's stomach lurched. Their master had to be a very useful piece of information. Master has their own thing to do, and I don't know when they'll show up. But Master left instructions that you should stay with Princess Sapphiro for the time being and follow her orders. All right, Cat 9 nodded. And there's that hostage. Look after her when you can. Don't let her die. All right, Cat 9 nodded. Where is she now? She's right. The hostage. Both Feng Wu's and Feng Sun's stomachs lurched, and their pupils contracted. That hostage had to be Chaoga. It had to be. They were about to reveal it. Say it now. Clenching her fists, Feng Wu stared at Cat 9. She's right. The woman changed the subject. Someone will take you there when you go to Sapphiro. It's not easy to get into that place. I see. Cat 9 nodded at the woman. I'm off then. They nodded at each other and went their separate ways. Feng Sun turned to Feng Wu. Xiao Wu, what do we do now? Feng Wu looked at him. You follow that woman. Since she could assign tasks to Cat 9, she must be a more senior member in their organization. As for Cat 9, Feng Wu was worried that Feng Sun would lose control and kill Cat 9. Feng Sun smiled wryly. I promise you that I won't do anything reckless. Feng Wu then ran after Cat 9, while Feng Sun followed the teenage girl wearing a red cape. Cat 9 had no idea that Feng Wu was following him, and he was humming a tune as he walked. When they reached a secluded corner, Cat 9 suddenly disappeared. Feng Wu frowned a little. This wasn't supposed to happen. She had been holding her breath. There was no way that Cat 9 could have detected her. So, where did he go? Feng Wu's gaze swept over the smooth cave wall. Nothing seemed out of place at first glance, but she realized that something was off when she studied it again. Chapter 1631, Untitled. A section of the stone wall looked particularly smooth. It looked like it had been touched many times. This slight detail didn't escape Feng Wu's eyes. Something definitely wasn't right here. When Feng Wu slid her fair hands across the smooth wall, she could feel the hidden inscription formations behind it. Had it been something else, Feng Wu might not know what to do, but it was a formation, and the opportunity almost seemed tailor-made for her. Feng Wu was about to push the door open and enter when whoosh. She heard a noise from behind the wall. Without thinking, Feng Wu quickly hid behind a giant rock. A door opened. A man walked out. Glancing around with a wary look in his eyes, he only strolled off with a cane in his hand after making sure that everything was in order. From behind, he looked a lot like Cat 9. Feng Wu smiled a little. Cat 9 could never have seen this coming. However, that only minutes had passed, but Cat 9 now looked like a different person. Did he have a consummate disguise technique? Because she knew where Cat 9 was going, Feng Wu wasn't in a hurry. Once Cat 9 was a little black dot in the distance, Feng Wu pressed a bump on the smooth wall. Cracked at the door opened, and Feng Wu quickly squeezed in before it opened all the way. The next second, she shut the door behind her. The space inside wasn't big, and there were cupboards along all of the walls. There were a lot of things in the compartments. Moving closer, Feng Wu saw that there was a leather chest. She opened it to find some crude stones of the grassland in it. The crude stones were a hard currency in the grassland, and were the only currency that some of the herdsmen would recognize. Feng Wu put the stones in her ring space without hesitation. She found a human skin mask in the second compartment, and it was none other than the face which Cat 9 had used before. Feng Wu's clear eyes lit up when she saw it, and an idea struck her. This was good stuff, and she had to take it. The next compartment contained an outfit and the familiar hat which Cat 9 had worn before. Good. This was very good news. Feng Wu could make very good use of these pieces. She quickly put the mask and clothes away and looked expectantly at the next compartment. She was in a great mood and wanted to jump for joy, because this was like treasure hunting. Before she opened the chest, no one would know what was hidden inside. The fourth compartment. Feng Wu's eyes lit up when she saw what was inside. Seriously? What a coincidence! A crystal lay in the fourth compartment. It was translucent and glowed, and was in the shape of an ear. It was none other than by its official name, it was known as a recording stone. To explain it in simple words, this stone could be used to record images. Before, when Feng Wu threatened Jun Wuxia and Zhuo Qingyu, she had pretended that she had such a stone. Luck was on her side. This was a real piece of treasure. Since Cat 9 had kept it here, it must have recorded something. The idea excited Feng Wu. Chapter 1632, Untitled. Since Cat 9 had hidden this place so well, the other compartments were bound to contain some good stuff. But Feng Wu didn't have time to look through everything. She was in a hurry, however. She wasn't going to leave anything behind for Cat 9. It was like a swarm of locusts had flown by as she cleared out the entire place. Feng Wu left after putting everything in the space. Soon, she caught up with Cat 9, who now looked like an old man and had no idea that he was being followed. The campsite was right ahead, and the old man Cat 9 was slowly walking toward it. He casually walked toward the senile grassland side. Standing on a high point, Feng Wu watched as he entered Sapphiro's campsite. She even heard people calling out, "Steward Mu is finally back." Steward Mu? Feng Wu frowned and a sudden thought struck her. The previous Cat 9 could obviously go in and out of Sapphiro's tent, and so could this Steward Mu. What did that mean? It meant that Steward Mu had at least 2 public identities around Sapphiro. If that was the case, Feng Wu rubbed her chin, her eyes lighting up. "Brother 9, you're back?" When Feng Wu showed up as Cat 9 in front of Sapphiro's tent, the teenager guarding the door greeted her with a smile. Feng Wu was very good at reading people. She could tell right away that Cat 9 was a popular figure here. "Is Steward Mu back?" Feng Wu glanced at the teenager. The guard nodded. "Yes, Brother 9. Steward Mu was away for 3 days and he's finally back." I think he'll stay longer this time. Come to think of it, it's quite odd. Whenever Steward Moo is here, you aren't. The two of you never get to meet. Feng Wu knew why that was. She was right. Steward Moo was only a cover. This Cat 9 was a genius. She just didn't know what his plan was. After everything he had done, it had to be something big. Could it be? A possibility came to Feng Wu's mind. Her heart raced and she clenched her fists. Brother 9? Brother 9? Seeing that Feng Wu was dazed, the guard waved a hand in front of her face. Guard the door for the princess. No irrelevant person is to enter. Feng Wu shot a stern look at the teenager. Yes. The teenager straightened his back. Crossing her hands behind her back, Feng Wu casually walked away. A short distance away stood a familiar figure. It was none other than Steward Moo himself. The steward was scolding some servants. When he looked up, he saw Cat 9 wearing his signature hat. Instantly, Steward Moo's face turned pale. His eyes widened and he didn't know how to react. Feng Wu's Cat 9, on the other hand, greeted Steward Moo with a grin. She said, Steward Moo, long time no see. How have you been? Of course Steward Moo wasn't doing well. He was almost frightened to death. Because he was the real Cat 9. Now that he was Steward Moo, who was the other Cat 9? Who could it be? Moreover, seeing the mask, the hat, and the outfit, Steward Moo had a very bad feeling. Chapter 1633, Accident. Steward Moo stared at Feng Wu, and the expressions on his face kept changing. He then put his hands behind his back and spoke to Feng Wu with a grim face. You, come with me now. Feng Wu looked at Steward Moo and smiled a little. That smile was a provocation in Steward Moo's eyes. His face immediately darkened, and he stared at Feng Wu. Are you defying me now? Feng Wu smiled a little. She was about to speak when someone showed up. Steward Moo, you're back? It was none other than Sapphiro herself. Seeing the princess, Steward Moo was a little surprised. He then reacted quickly and smiled at Sapphiro. Sapphiro nodded to the steward before glancing at Feng Wu. Cat 9, I thought you left. Why you back? Feng Wu cleared her throat and glanced at Steward Moo. Steward Moo was furious. What did this little thief want? Sapphiro looked from Steward Moo to Cat 9 and frowned. She said grumpily, What's your problem? The two of you never show up together. Now that you do, you won't stop quarreling. Steward Moo frowned. Your Highness, there's something wrong with this Cat 9. I was questioning him. Sapphiro frowned. What could possibly be wrong with him? Feng Wu also glared at Steward Moo, as if waiting for an explanation. Steward Moo snorted. Where were you last night? Why didn't I see you here in the campsite? Last night? The look on Sapphiro's face changed, and she threw a dirty look at Steward Moo. Why do you want to know that? I give you my word. Cat 9 didn't do anything last night. Steward Moo immediately said, Your Highness. Sapphiro waved him off. Steward Moo, if that's your only question, there's no need to ask more. She was obviously on Cat 9's side. With Sapphiro on her side, Feng Wu winked at Steward Moo at an angle that the princess couldn't see. She was provoking him deliberately. Steward Moo was furious. Not only did this thief steal his identity, he was also gloating and blatantly taunting him. How could anyone be so shameless? Steward Moo couldn't be any more furious, but to his frustration, Sapphiro told Cat, You, come with me. I need to speak to you. Steward Moo's stomach sank. Judging by the princess's attitude, she was definitely going to talk about something confidential. But that was a thief who had stolen his identity. At that thought, Steward Moo couldn't help but step forward, trying to follow Sapphiro. But Sapphiro turned around and gave Steward Moo a strange look. Steward Moo, you can stop here. Sapphiro then turned to leave, taking the fake Cat 9 with her. Steward Moo was astonished. This way, Sapphiro would tell this thief all her secrets. Princess, Steward Moo yelled. His voice was so loud and shrill that it made Sapphiro jump. Patting her chest, she turned around and glared at Steward Moo. "Have you lost your mind? Why did you shout so loudly?" Steward Moo couldn't care about that anymore. Right now, the only thing he could think about was the ruffian who was impersonating him. "Your Highness, he's a bad man," said Steward Moo anxiously. Chapter 1634. Clever Feng Wu. Feng Wu knew that she couldn't keep silent anymore. She had to say something. "I see that Steward Moo indeed doesn't like me." Feng Wu stared at Steward Moo with a half-smile and played her part as Cat 9. "That's right. I've never been a good person. I kill, I set fires, I ravish women, and I'm capable of the worst deeds possible. To Steward Moo, that's the kind of person I am, is that right?" "Moo." Steward Moo was furious. Because this person wouldn't stop calling himself Cat 9, but Steward Moo himself was the real Cat 9. Therefore, Feng Wu might sound like she was trashing herself, but in fact, she was trashing Steward Moo. Steward Moo was so furious that he was speechless as he shook from head to toe. Sapphiro gave Steward Moo a strange look, for the man struck her as being very odd today. Feng Wu snorted. "What? Am I wrong? Is Cat 9 not a villain? Steward Moo, do you think that I'm a good person?" Steward Moo was speechless. He couldn't say that Cat 9 was a villain, because it was his other identity. He couldn't say that Cat 9 was a good person either, because this rascal was pretending to be him. For one moment, Steward Moo stood there, stupefied. Because no matter what he said, it wouldn't be right. Feng Wu chuckled inwardly. This Steward Moo just wasn't smart enough to deal with her. She even had a feeling that Sapphiro seemed to find Steward Moo strange. Well, if that was the case, she would have a lot to work with. Looking around, Feng Wu had an idea. Steward Moo pointed at Feng Wu with a trembling finger. "You're..." Feng Wu said matter-of-factly, "I'm a fake, aren't I? That's why you can't even form a coherent sentence, because you believe that I'm not the real Cat 9. Ah, Steward Moo, I only criticized you a little. Do you have to hate me so much?" Steward Moo almost fainted with rage. How could anyone be so obnoxious? He was impersonating him, but why did he sound so righteous? He should be on the side of justice, but this rascal had just called him ridiculous. Steward Moo raised a hand to hit Feng Wu. Sapphiro narrowed her eyes. "Steward Moo, you've crossed the line." Steward Moo looked at Sapphiro anxiously. "Your Highness, he's fake. He's not the real Cat 9. Sapphiro stared at him as if she was looking at an idiot. Only a short while ago, Cat 9 had given her some good news. How could he be fake? If one of them had to be fake. Sapphiro found that Steward Moo here was the stranger of the two. At that thought, Sapphiro waved her hand. "Forget it. Steward Moo, not another word. This isn't the first time you've used your position as steward to push other people around." Steward Moo was speechless. Sapphiro snorted. "Cat 9 works for my senior brother. You can't bully him like with other people." He worked for her senior brother? Feng Wu made a mental note of that. She had no idea who Sapphiro's master was, let alone her senior brother. What was her relationship with the man in black from last night? What about Chaoga's kidnapper? Feng Wu was lost in thought. Sapphiro then turned to Cat 9. "9, don't mind Steward Moo. He's not in his right mind today. Well, since you're so smart, help me think of a way to take care of someone." Interrupted, Feng Wu asked in bewilderment, "Your Highness, who do you want to take care of?" Chapter 1635. Coincidence. Feng Wu, of course. Sapphiro gritted her teeth in frustration. That stinky girl is so arrogant and overbearing, just because she's some princess of the Junhua Empire. She's put too much importance on herself. How dare she offend me? Feng Wu didn't know what to say. Since Sapphiro didn't know that this Cat 9 was actually Feng Wu, she went on venting her anger. "Do you know how annoying she is? She disrespected me. If I don't kill her this time, I won't call myself a princess. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. Sapphiro stared at Feng Wu. Cat 9, you're the smartest one with a lot of witty ideas. Tell me, can you think of a way to get rid of her? Feng Wu said, What idea could she possibly have? It would be like setting herself up. This Sapphiro was unbelievable. Sapphiro stared at Cat 9. Are you afraid to do it? Feng Wu said, Ahem. Well, it's not that. I just don't know how far your highness wants to go. Sapphiro found the question ridiculous. How far? Don't hold back. It'll be the best if you can kill her without attracting any attention. Feng Wu cleared her throat uneasily. Sapphiro frowned. Cat 9, what's your problem? Didn't you tell me that it would be very easy to handle Feng Wu? Steward Mu had kept his dark eyes on Feng Wu the entire time. Seeing the uneasy look on her face, he immediately grabbed the chance. Steward Mu said, Your Highness, there's definitely something wrong with this Catnin. Maybe he really is an impersonator. However, to Steward Mu's disappointment, Sapphiro only waved impatiently at him. Quiet. Steward Mu was speechless. Sapphiro stared at Cat 9. Didn't you tell me you had an idea? Where's that idea now? What's wrong with you? Feng Wu said, Well, it's like Steward Mu said, I'm not the real Catning. Stop it. Sapphiro smacked Feng Wu on the head. Can't I tell if you're real or fake? Stop acting out. Steward Mu was only mad. Don't take him seriously. Steward Mu felt very wronged. That wasn't just his anger talking. Feng Wu snickered inwardly, but she still feigned a reluctant tone. Is that it? Is Steward Mu only angry? She shot Steward Mu a resentful look as she spoke. Steward Mu was furious. How could anyone be so abominable? This rascal had stolen his identity, but now he had to explain that this rascal was who Qi said he was. How utterly frustrating. Meanwhile, Feng Wu smiled at Steward Mu as her eyes flickered with a teasing light. Things were getting interesting. Even in such a perilous situation, Feng Wu remained very calm. She could play Steward Mu like a fool while fully convincing Sapphiro. Anyone else would have broken down under the pressure, let alone be able to set other people up. So, it was anger talking when Steward Mu targeted me, is that it? Feng Wu grinned at Steward Mu. Steward Mu's face went red with rage. Infuriated, Sapphiro glared at Steward Mu. Steward Mu, you're being unreasonable this time, and I do believe reason comes before loyalty. So, apologize to Cat 9. Chapter 1636, Xiao Wu's Trick. Steward Mu stared at Sapphiro in disbelief. Your Highness. Sapphiro frowned at him. Do it now. Steward Mu was speechless. He thought that everyone else had lost their minds. He had never expected things to come to this. But he knew perfectly well that Sapphiro wasn't easy to get along with. She was cold and unforgiving. After hearing what she said, he knew that she was genuinely angry. At that thought, Steward Mu was full of despair. He had no choice but to apologize. Since when did I call you a fake Cat 9? He stared at Feng Wu. Feng Wu put on a confused look and put her right palm next to her right ear. What? Steward Mu, what did you say? I'm afraid that it was lost in the wind. Steward Mu thought that he was going to explode. Especially when he saw Feng Wu's smiling, provoking eyes. However, Sapphiro was watching Steward Mu with a solemn look in her eyes. She was obviously on Cat 9's side. Steward Mu was full of despair, but with what was going on, he had no choice but to give in. Taking a deep breath, he turned to Feng Wu. You're the real Cat 9. You are. If anyone doubts you, slap them. Feng Wu looked enlightened. I see. I really am Cat 9. With your acknowledgement, I can finally admit it myself. Steward Mu was speechless. He was that close to dying from his anger. Sapphiro gave Cat 9 a grumpy look and found the teenager much more mischievous than before. Heech was getting back at Steward Mu. However, Heech was only a teenager, and it was only natural that he should have a temper. Sapphiro stared at Feng Wu. That's enough. You vented your anger. Happy now? Feng Wu grinned. My dear princess, you're the best. That almost made Sapphiro chuckle. She threw another glance at Feng Wu before saying, Fine, talk to me now. What plan do you have for Feng Wu? Feng Wu tilted her head and considered. She needed to come up with a plan that could both ensure her own safety and set Sapphiro up in the process. Even someone as smart as Feng Wu found it difficult to come up with a plan in such a short time. Just then, Sapphiro's eyes lit up. Wait, don't you have the yin-yang needle? The yin-yang needle? What was that? Judging from the expression on Sapphiro's face, Feng Wu could tell that it couldn't be anything good. Feng Wu looked at Steward Mu out of the corner of her eye. She saw the fleeting smirk in his eyes. He was gloating at her predicament. If that was the case, Feng Wu suddenly smiled, turned to Sapphiro, and spoke in a serious tone. That's right. I do have it. Sapphiro looked elated, but before she could speak, Feng Wu added, but Steward Mu took it earlier. What? Steward Mu looked as surprised as Sapphiro. Sapphiro looked at Feng Wu in confusion. Why does Steward Mu have your yin-yang needle? Feng Wu shrugged and said sincerely, Steward Mu said he wanted to borrow it. I don't know what he was thinking, but he hasn't given it back to me yet. She then grinned at Steward Mu and stretched out a hand. Steward Mu, can you give it back to me now? Chapter 1637, Resignation. No. Steward Mu stared at Feng Wu. Since when did I borrow your needle? But I need an explanation. Steward Mu was waiting for the rascal to be exposed when he couldn't produce the needle, so of course he wouldn't admit it, but he was no match for Feng Wu's calm. Feng Wu kept smiling at Steward Mu, making him cringe. For a moment he almost thought that he really was the one to be blamed. Steward Mu, you're so forgetful. Crossing her arms, Feng Wu shook her head with a wry smile. It happened here only just then. You borrowed the needle, saying that you wanted to study it carefully. No, I didn't do that. Steward Mu insisted. Because it never happened. He wouldn't believe that this rascal could turn white into black. However, Feng Wu smiled at him and sighed. Steward Mu, there's no point lying over something so obvious. Steward Mu said, Heh, I'll never admit to something I didn't do. He would like to see how long this fake Cat9 could keep doing this. Feng Wu said, Well, Steward Mu, if you didn't do it, I'm sure you don't mind getting frisked. Immediately, Steward Mu's face turned livid. Sapphiro looked from one to the other, because she didn't know who to trust. But there had been a clear change in Steward Mu's expression, and she stared at him. Steward Mu was exasperated. Cat9, how dare you offend your seniors and slander my name? Feng Wu smiled wryly. Steward Mu, you are completely unreasonable. You took my needle first. Completely unreasonable? Steward Mu was furious. However, Feng Wu sounded so righteous and she was so glib that he didn't know what to do. Moreover, Feng Wu was going to push further. Naturally, she sounded mild. Your Highness, if Steward Mu won't admit it, let's frisk him. She smiled wryly. He only took the needle just then. Since he hasn't left this place, he can't have hidden it. Steward Mu flushed with rage and trembled from head to toe. He couldn't say a word. Feng Wu smiled wryly. Therefore, we'll definitely find it if we frisk him. If Steward Mu finds it unfair, Your Highness, you can have me frisked as well. She said righteously, I won't accept it. One cannot simply turn wrong into right. Evil can never prevail over good. Steward Mu thought he was going to lose his mind. This rascal, this rascal. Feng Wu smiled at him. She had been so sure because she knew better than anyone else that Steward Mu was the real Cat9. Since the yin-yang needle hadn't been in that secret storage room, the only explanation was that Steward Mu had it on him. Therefore, with an order from Sapphiro, she would be able to find the needle. Steward Mu knew that as well, which was why he was so angry. But could he explain it? He had only just affirmed this rascal's identity. He had admitted that Heech was Cat 9. Steward Moo wanted to cry. Sapphiro stared at Steward Moo, and when she saw the changes in his expression, she already began to believe Feng Wu. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.